Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen. A couple changes this week. We're trying out a new camera angle and some new wall art. Hopefully, that'll make my intros just a little bit better. Our guest this week is Nick O'Kelly, another Green Beret from 1st Special Forces Group, who later went on to serve with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment as a Black Hawk pilot. He is now a certified financial planner down in North Carolina. Instagram is Thrive with Nick. I'll have links for that and his LinkedIn in the show notes. We went about little over 3 hours today in the show, and I hope you like where we went. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. All right, Nick, welcome to Lesser Known Operators. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, real quick, is your name Nicholas Allen. That's my middle name, and
Okay.
that used to be my Facebook profile name was Nick Allen.
Well, we're
Super
going to
funny.
let the viewers in on a little secret too. That is also my middle name.
There we go. There
So
we go.
I'm Nicholas Allen. I just I don't know. That's always been my social media thing. So I just stayed with it. So in
That's
real
fun.
life, I'm somebody else, but on social media land, I'm Nicholas Allen. So,
Yep.
uh,
I had to make the leap and convert to being my real self once I got out of the army.
oh, well, I know what you mean there, right? Because everybody on a team or whatever had this fake, like they were Kaiser Sose or they were some obscene name that they
Exactly.
would, but so nobody could find them, and everybody thought they were clever, but anybody who was looking for them could find them.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
know what
And
you
all
mean
their
there.
all their friends were other SF dudes. So it's like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
we're
hiding
all.
anything.
Yeah, you look at their friends, go, oh, I bet this is that person. But yeah,
Yep.
well, you got in the professional sector when you got out, right? So what's your
Yeah.
job now? I think you had a bunch of acronyms next to your name when I looked you up. Was it
Yeah.
CFP?
Yeah.
Everybody,
Certified financial planner,
what?
professional.
How you like
It's
doing that?
I love it, man. It's cool. I've always been a closet finance nerd. So
Okay.
when I got out in 23. It was kind of easy to figure out what I wanted to do. I never had that lull of shoot, what do I do with my life now? So
You didn't
that
destroy
was
your
nice.
life with drinking and depression like the rest of
I
us?
I did that earlier. I did that while I
Oh,
was still
earlier.
active.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it is a fine line, that we all have to go through. But yeah, I know that at
Yep.
least you had the transition part route, but you still got to sink deep into depression and alcohol. We can talk
Yeah.
about that
Oh yeah.
later on down the road. So obviously, Green Beret, you responded to my plea for people to come on my show and have my tens of listeners hear
Yep.
your life story. So first group, I'm going to assume based on your age and how long you were in, you're 18 X-ray, correct?
I was. Yep. Got in 2010. Um.
2010.
Yep. So
Okay. So yeah.
I
So
graduated the Q in June 2012.
2012. So I
Yeah.
started the Q in June of 2012.
Oh, nice. So we high
So
fived on the way out.
yeah, high fived on the way out. But I mean, as if with all the other 18 X-rays, you had a much shittier experience than I did. I just kind of showed up to selection, got my go, and then went to the course. Whereas you got SOPs, the preparatory course, and got shit on
Yeah. Yep.
because I've said it times before. Nobody likes 18 X-rays except for 18 X-rays, especially
That
cadre.
that's so funny.
What
It's so true.
it really is. And then some of the time, 18 X-rays don't even like you guys. But well, take me through that. So you're a
Yeah.
civilian, right?
Yep.
And you were, I think you said you're from Washington.
Yeah. Washington State. Yep. Western
So what
Washington.
what was the deciding factor saying I'm a civilian and now I want to be a Green Beret? What bit you in the ass to get that
Yeah.
going?
Good question. So I wish I could say it was like heroism and wanting to serve, be patriotic, but it really was. I went to college for a couple years and did what we talked about. I drank and didn't go to class and just partied my ass off. And yeah, I made it about a year and a half, and then couldn't couldn't keep going because of my dad was like, I'm not going to pay for this. You're responsible for everything basically. So I was in ROTC though in college, thankfully. So that gave me a little exposure to the military, and kind
Hmm.
of like that career track. So yeah, I came back home after a year and a half of college, went to work for my dad and then about 6 months later, I was like, F this, I need to figure out my life. So walked down to walked down to the Army guys. Well, Marine guys first, then that didn't work out. And then I went to the Army guys. And originally, actually, I was going to do have you heard of the high school to flight school program?
No, it sounds like
Okay.
something the Army would come up with. Not to
Yeah.
butt in there, but we're getting some similarities too. First name and middle name. I also went to the Marines and they told me no. And then I
That's so
walked
funny.
one unit over and the Army said, "What was your AVAB score? Yes, you
Yep.
can join."
Dude, same
So,
exact thing here. That's really funny.
so
That's
yeah.
really funny.
So you're ROTC. So
Yep.
we come out of college. So you could have gone and been an officer and enjoyed that horrible existence in the regular Army,
Yeah.
but you chose to go the enlisted route as an X-ray.
Yep.
So, what are your parents? What you said you worked for your dad. What does your dad do?
Yeah, he owned. Well, at the time, he owned a car magazine. So like Auto Traders or like the car magazines you'd see like at a grocery store.
Yeah, like the Craigslist for
Yeah,
cars.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he owned a company that made those magazines, except it was in Spanish. So
Hmm.
super. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It was successful, and then 2008 happened, and had to shut the doors. But it was cool to get that exposure.
Yeah, so 2008. I mean, we all experienced the end of the boom in different
Yep.
ways. I mean, it led to a lot of guys, joining the military in 2000. I mean, I didn't join until the end of 2010, and then went to basic in 11. But
Okay.
we were business was booming. I was in construction, and it was you're
Yeah.
just building, and everything was this. And then one day, nobody had a job.
It's wild, man. I was too young to like really kind of appreciate that, right? Because I was just out of high school. I was
Yeah,
partying. You know what I mean? I wasn't really paying attention to the economy. So but it's crazy to like look back at actually what happened and how bad it was.
yeah. It's interesting, like watching documentaries today, and you see
Yep.
these major events and things that happen, and then we had 9/11, and then all of a sudden the opioid epidemic, and then the market collapsed, and then we get into the 2010s, and all this other shit happens, and they go, and then you look back and go, yeah, maybe that's why life was so fucked up. All these things
Yeah.
happening. And then there's what did they say about joining the military? It's the male equivalent of "fuck it, I'll go be a stripper."
Yeah. That's funny. I actually haven't heard that. That
No,
makes a lot of it makes a lot of sense though, right? It's like low barrier to entry. You as long as you can walk and you're fairly healthy, like you don't need anything. You can just do it.
I, I
That's a
think
good
at the
point.
time, as long as you scored in the 33rd percentile on the ASVAB, you got in.
Man. And
And
you
I
get that
don't
for like
even know
writing
if,
your name.
well, no, it doesn't mean you
I
got a 33%. That just means you were in the 33rd percentile or below.
got
So,
it.
like, I think I got in low 90s or something. That didn't mean I got a
Yeah.
90%. That just means I was in that percentile of people in there. So even if you're
Oh.
a 99, it doesn't mean you got 100%. It just means you're in the 99th percentile for the test. Oh, for
Wow.
those listening at home, the ASVAB is when I took it, it was this multiple choice test, general mechanical, math. There's some language stuff in there, but it was multiple choice. So I just took it, and the answers were on the screen. So especially for the math, I would just take the answer and plug it in and go, nope, nope, yes, and that's how.
Yep.
So I don't know. People would fail that thing miserably.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
man. It's pretty wild. Because you take it for granted, I guess. Like, oh, I don't know. Same here.
whatever. I don't know. I didn't even take it seriously. I just went and took it, and it's like, oh, let's try this. Oh, now we're joining the army. So here we go.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we walk into the recruiter, and you go in. I want to be a Green Beret. What? I guess that tells what's your level of recruiter's ability to grasp that. How did they take it?
Yeah. Yeah. That was so I actually didn't go in there saying that. I went in there back on the high school to flight school thing. So that's what I wanted to do. So I started the process of and basically what it is somebody can it's called high school to flight school because somebody can join the army theoretically out of high school and then go to warrant officer candidate school, become a warrant, and go straight to flight school. So they join as an E5, and then they're a W1, 6 months later. So it's a pretty good way to accelerate, the pay, basically the pay chart. So I was doing that, and it was taking forever, man. And I was in this weird spot where I was just partying my life away, and like I needed to do something. So I think 6 months into that process, I was like, you know what? Like I still have a few months to go before I even know if I got selected for the program. So I asked the recruiter, what else can I do that I'm going to be proud of, right? That I'm going to like feel
Mm-hmm.
good about doing. And he told me about the 18 X-ray program, showed me the recruiting video, and I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. But to your question, he was basically like, are you sure? Like, I've put people through this, nobody's passed it. You know what happens if you don't pass it. So he was very good at like communicating that. And I frankly, I don't know if he really thought I would have made it. I don't know, but
Yeah, the recruiter, they don't. It's like, yeah, you might make it, but even at
right,
selection, right? You're standing there with all the dudes. You don't know who's going to pass.
yeah,
There's some
yeah,
little guy that's the toughest person there, just
yeah,
because he's
for
been picked
sure.
on his whole life, and he'd carry the biggest guy there all day, and then the
Yep,
big guys that look like they're Captain America, they fall
yep,
out. So
yep.
it
Or they
just,
can't run,
or
let
they,
alone keep up.
you can't, or they just can't mentally keep up.
Yep.
You've walked, you did land nav at night where you walk past a draw and there's somebody crying in there. That's a
Oh
grown man.
yeah, dude.
That's a
Oh, it's
grown
yeah.
man just sobbing in there
Yep.
because he lost his headlamp,
Is-
or he lost his
Yep.
map, scorecard, weapon, or in some of the
Yeah.
pictures I've seen, lost all of their clothes as well. So I mean, that's
Jeez.
so. So, oh, all right, they got you hooked on the X-ray program, and
Yep.
the recruiter doesn't really have any idea how shitty
No.
that is. But
No. No idea.
basic. I assume basic and AIT were pretty easy for you. Anything remarkable there?
No, they were actually like. I mean, it sucked, right? Because it's still basic training. Like you get treated like shit. But looking back on it, like it was such a good stepping stone, like you said, for the X-ray program. Because all you do is run, and you just get super fast. So by the time you're going to airborne and brag, like you're in good shape, man. You have no excuse if you're not in good shape,
Yeah.
So it was good in that regard. And yeah, nothing dramatic and basic. Just getting your shit smoked and learning how to be a soldier.
How did you take to airborne school, having to jump out of a plane? Was that a shock to the system for you? Because you wanted to be a pilot, and now they're like,
Yeah.
well, get out.
Yeah. Good question. No, I think I was just as nervous as everybody else, on the first one, just like, but it was kind of like a shit, here we go. Kind of don't really have a choice because if I don't do this, I'm not going to where I want to be. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a lot of the military is, well, I can do this and something bad could happen, or I could
Yep.
not do it and I know something bad will happen, like Article
Right.
15, demotion, reduction in
Yep.
pay, extra duty. My friends will make fun of me, things like
Yeah.
that. So
That's a good point. Because Pete, have you seen those like selection shows on TV? I think it's on
I
Hulu, the Special Forces one.
I refuse. There's
Okay.
no
All
Green
right.
Berets in Special Forces, the toughest tests.
Yeah. I
I'm sure those celebrities are having a great time, but whatever.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because even when you watch that, right? Like it's obviously like a watered down version of what we actually go through. But even watching that, like, dude, they have nothing on the line. Like
No,
yes, people are watching them, but they like all they got to do is say, "Hey, I'm done," and nobody watching the show is going to be like, "Oh, that guy's weak." Everybody's just going to be like, "Yeah, whatever. He made it that far." So
yeah,
nothing on the line compared to what we had. It's totally different.
yeah. I mean the training, and I've talked about this before. A lot of the training is real life. Like you can die. My
Yeah.
whole career was ended on a training accident, and people do die in
Yeah,
training.
absolutely.
On the range, air operations, like your chute doesn't open, you got 4 seconds to figure it out, or you're dead.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so
that's
true.
like your first real shock, I guess, is you get to airborne school and you're doing something because at basic you do the tower and you do Nick at night where they're shooting over you, but that's pretty
Yeah.
controlled. There have been
Yep.
accidents in the past, but it gets more controlled every time you do it. But
Right.
you get to airborne, that's the first time that I can die. I can be dead in 30 seconds
Yeah.
doing this. So you're standing in that door, which I never got to do. I never got to stand in the door. I wish I'd like to. I was twice a bunch
Yeah.
of times, but
I didn't in airborne school, but I did later because I went to jump master and all that. But yeah, it took not till later. I didn't get to do that.
for everybody
But
listening at home, airborne school, you have to go to airborne school. You have to be airborne qualified before you can go to the Q course. And so you do 2 weeks of training on how to jump out of an aircraft correctly. And you jump out of a C-130 or a C-17, and you're going about 135 knots or 150 miles an hour at 1,150 feet above
yeah.
ground level.
Yep.
And at that speed, you jump out, your parachute comes out on a static line, and you count, I think, to
5,
four.
right?
It was at
4.
4 or 5. In group, it was 6 because we were
Yeah, we had the MC7s or whatever they
MC6s.
were called. Sixes, yeah.
I think we jumped T10s or T11s, which is just
That's
this
right.
round parachute. And you 1,000, you're holding on to your reserve parachute like this. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Then you look up, and if your parachute's a bowl of shit, you've got about 4 or 5 seconds to throw your reserve out, or you're going to hit the ground at about 110 miles an hour. So
Yeah.
that's your first introduction to I could die doing this, but they make you feel like you have no other choice, right? When
Right.
you're up
Exactly.
there,
Yep.
you can go to jail, like you can get arrested for a jump
Yeah.
refusal.
That's
So
crazy. That's crazy to think about that, right?
right,
Like,
jump out of
yeah.
the
I know.
plane, or hey, the MPs are gonna come arrest you when we land.
Yeah. And your
So
career's shot
yeah, you'd be shitty. You
potentially.
get a
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, kind of never thought about that. Yeah,
I didn't
uh,
either.
but when civilians are like, "Oh, I don't want to go to work today" or something like that, and you think back to the military, well, like I had to go to work today because if I didn't, I was going to go to jail.
Exactly. Or not pass the
So
course that I'm
or not
trying to
pass the
pass,
course or go
right?
to the 82nd. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's just another
exactly.
way of looking at it. Like we had to do things because we didn't want to get arrested, like
Yeah.
normal things, like go
Yep.
to chow.
Yeah. That's so true, man. Shave your face, right? Like just the little
Yeah,
things
shave
you
your
don't even
face.
think about.
You
Yeah.
don't shave for enough times. You don't shave enough times, man. You can get in some serious trouble.
Mm-hmm. That's
Anyway,
right.
we got more off on that. So we get out of airborne and we get to the course. So all of that's one thing, but you get to SOPC, and that's generally a shock because, like I said earlier, nobody likes you once you get
Yeah.
there. You're well below. Like I was a private when or no, I was a specialist. I was a private at
Okay.
selection, but I was regular Army, so I had this like
Oh.
accepted. Oh, you're coming from the regular Army. Oh, you're
Yep.
whatever. Everybody was buddy buddy, but the
Yep.
X-rays were they were their own group. Everybody was scared of them. Everybody was scared of them. Is that kind of what you
That's
saw?
in SOPSI or in you mean
Well, that was in
selection?
selection.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
in
So
SOPSI, just the cadre just hated you. They just hate.
SOPSI was so my experience with SOPSI was actually different, and it might have been just timing because actually it had to have been timing. I think my cadre were mostly X-rays, former X-rays, and they were studs, absolute studs, and that was like the coolest course ever when I went through, man, because all you did was work out twice a day, eat a lot of food, and then just get ready for selection. So it was pretty cool. Like you get like 10 hours of sleep a day. Like it was not, yes, it was physically hard, but it wasn't like we weren't getting yelled at and smoked unless somebody screwed up something pretty
Yeah,
major. So our
somebody always
experience was,
screws up.
yeah, I'm sure it's probably changed depending on who's in charge of SOPSI, right? But when
Right.
I went through,
I
it was pretty
the
chill.
guy I had on a couple weeks ago. He was an X-ray in 2004 or five, I
Okay.
think he was, and he said it was awful. Just god
Yeah.
awful. That was when the
Yeah.
brutalization. They were just the cadre were just
Yep.
hated. Did you have
Yep.
what was his name? Sergeant Hobby? Was he one of your cadre?
No,
I
doesn't
think
sound
he was just
familiar.
yeah. That's the only name I remember from when I was
I
out
don't even
there.
remember my cadre's name. I just remember we called him Uncle Jesse because he looks like Uncle Jesse from Full House. but I don't
Okay.
remember his name. I'm sure somebody listening will be like, "Oh yeah, that's who it
So
is."
we
But
you finish up with that, and then it's time for selection. Was it
yeah,
other guys have expressed that it was everything you're stressed out up until that point, and then you get into selection and you kind of got to relax because all of it was just preparing, and there was nobody like breathing down your neck at this point. What were some moments at selection
yeah,
where you felt like, oh, this is like, here we go.
yeah. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, so I was never relaxed at selection, but I I think the worst part of selection for me was just team week sucked because I was an X-ray, right? So like jumping into a leadership role with other dudes who are E6s and first lieutenants and whatever. Like to me, that was like how am I going to tell these guys what to do, right? So that was the most challenging part of selection. But other than that, man, the biggest thing I remember is just how freaking sore you are all the time. Like, do you remember taking like the night shift, right? Fire guard at night.
Oh
Those
yeah.
I don't even remember how long they were, at 30 minutes an hour, whatever. But I just remember stretching
It
the
depended
entire.
how yeah, it depended how well your tent did because you were intense,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So we were intense. I wasn't. The barracks came in a few years later, but sometimes we would condense down. But if you lost a lot of people in your tent, that affected your fire guard.
Yeah.
So, because we would just, I think we would just start at the door and go around because it was too
Yep.
hard to get names and like a roster and find people. You just sat up for your 15 minutes and then
Yep.
woke the next guy up and things like that. But, uh, I, oh, selection was, yeah, you were just in constant pain, but you were also in
Yeah.
pain because contrary to the television programs, there was a lot of downtime.
There is.
You're just
Yeah.
sitting there trying not to fall asleep because if you fall asleep you're going to get dropped or
Yep.
something bad's going to happen to you, so you're trying not to fall asleep, so you're 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 exhausted, you're trying to stay awake, and you're stressed out. But I remember my feet, uh
Yes. Yeah.
just the I had to run string through some of my blisters so that they wouldn't get bigger.
Oh,
Yeah, whatever.
nasty.
I mean, maybe I didn't focus on my foot care enough, but
Well,
I graduated, I passed, so fuck
yeah,
it. Who
yeah.
cares? You know?
People say that, man, but I think there's only so much you can do, right? Like if you go through that, I think you're just gonna get your feet are gonna get torn up, just because of the nature of what you're doing. I'm sure it can help preparing, but
Yeah, I
I think
I
you're gonna
think
get torn up regardless.
a more senior guy because I had only the first time I went through selection, I'd only been in the army for 7 months, I think, at
Oh
that point.
wow,
So I still, you're still not used to your feet still
yeah,
aren't used to that. And you get new boots after you get to your unit. And then I went to selection like 30 days or 90 days after I got to my first unit. So there were ways, and it was better when I went back because I got hurt my first time. It was
that
better when I
stinks.
went back, but the first time I absolutely destroyed my feet.
God, were you 11 Bravo or what was
I
your
was a
right?
13 Papa, which is a multiple launch rocket systems fire direction system specialist
Wow, that's a mouthful. That
in
sounds really cool though.
2nd Battalion, 18th Field Artillery Regiment, 75th Fires Brigade, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Fort
So
Sill, okay.
if you ever get a chance to go, I recommend you skip it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, basic, AIT, and then stationed. It was
Okay.
not my favorite place in the world. So I hopefully will never go back unless I get invited to go speak at a basic training graduation or something like
There you
that.
go. Yeah.
But what what stood out about selection for you? Was there anything where you're like, I really like this, or fuck, I don't ever want to do this ever again?
Yeah. So I was a runner. So I was in really good endurance guy. So all the like runs and rucks, like that was I don't want to say I enjoyed it because it was still, physical work, but I did well on those, well enough that I wasn't like dreading them. I was always in the, top 5 or 10. The thing that I was the most nervous for was the nasty Nick, man, because I was one of those guys that like I didn't have the good rope climbing technique. Like I could get up it, but it wasn't pretty. So that was honestly my biggest like all right, I got to get through this one portion, and then obviously land nav because all the variables. But yeah, the nasty Nick, dude, that was my one kryptonite that I was really nervous for.
The obstacle course, huh?
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I thought there were a couple
See? Yeah. That's what all my buddies said too.
obstacles on there that were, I don't know how this is safe. And I don't know how people just don't die. But
Right.
guys just make it happen. So
Yep.
I thought that was a fun part. The land nav was land nav. I was good at it, but it was, just let's just execute. I always had problem starting from the start point,
Mm,
just walking off into the dark. As soon as I stepped off,
yeah.
I was fine. But I think I've said this before. I watched the movie The Village before I went to
Yeah.
selection, and I was terrified in my mind that there was one of those things out there. Because from walking around in the dark in North Carolina, the woods, they start making noise,
Absolutely. Yep.
and
Your
from
mind
and
plays tricks.
there's cadre making noise to mess with you because they're bored, or there's
Yep.
hillbillies out there. Because you find out later. Remember in SUT, those people that would follow us around and steal all the
Yeah.
brass.
Yeah.
The
Wild,
Hills Have
right?
Eyes people are out there too.
Yeah.
They fucking come and
Yeah.
steal you. Dee 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 dee. So
Right.
there's some fucking weirdos, but no, it's yeah. I forgot about the nasty Nick too. I think we did it later on. I don't know.
I don't even
I
remember
was-
when I think
I got
I don't
done with
know.
selection. I was like, I would never want to do that shit ever again. That was fun though.
Yeah.
Whatever.
For
But
real. Yeah, for real. We had
so
actually I didn't mention this. We had one day, I think it was the first week. So I went through in February of 11 and it snowed like the first couple, I think it was during gate week. Yeah. So we had one of our runs and it was just snowing, man. We're headlamps with just you know, thick snowflakes. It was pretty cool. But people are like sliding on the finish line, falling over. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
yeah, North Carolina gets some swings in weather. It was cold when I went in January, and then I went back in September, and it was god awful hot. It
Oh
was
yeah.
fucking miserable. But whatever, you deal with it, right? And
Yeah,
it's just another one of those gates. Like the people that are going to pass, they're going to pass. And the people that
exactly.
aren't are going to say, "Oh, at least I tried." And then there's the people that say, "Oh, I was going to go to selection, but I never did."
Right. Exactly.
What do you
Yeah.
think about that? Because you were in the army for a while, and people will ask you stuff. Say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about doing that." I always tell everybody just go do it. You
Yep.
know
I do
what do
too.
you what do you,
I do too. I tell people like if they're thinking about it, like then that means they want more, right?
Yeah,
So why settle for where you're at now? Like what's the harm in trying? You know what I mean? I even think if you go to selection and you don't get selected, like good on you. Like you tried. You know what I mean? As long as you tried, as long as you put your best foot forward, and it wasn't like you just didn't prepare like you should have, or you know what I'm getting at.
yeah. Go try it. It's the same with
Yeah,
anything like this whole process I've got here. It was just one day said I'm just going to do it
yeah,
because it would be a lot better in 30, 40 years that I look back and go, oh, I'm glad I was sitting in my basement doing that thing I wanted to do instead of just playing on my
Ex-
phone. But
exactly, man.
that's the
Yeah.
military's like that, right? You can get settled. What's that? Are you moving something around? Do you hear that
Oh,
noise?
yeah, yeah. Sorry, that was me.
Oh,
My
I'm
bad.
looking
I didn't know
around.
you could.
I don't know if you saw my eyes. I'm looking around going, what am I doing here?
Sorry about that. I got
You're
I got
fine.
noise canceling headphones on, so I couldn't I couldn't
Oh,
hear.
I got to leave them open. I got the mic here and then I got one in here. I just wanted to be nice and relaxed when having the show. I watched Sean
Yeah,
Ryan's and I was like, he looks like he's relaxed. He's got a comfy
yeah,
chair. He's got nothing to speak into, and I kind of going for that. So I just want to be
yeah. I
nice
like it.
and relaxed. It helps me to stick to my plan of how I want to, talk to people here. The more
I like
comfortable
it.
you are, the more you have it. But um, what was I saying? I don't know.
So, talking about dudes going and trying, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
you
trying. You're
started the
gonna look
podcast.
back. You start this. I tell people, yeah, just do it. Do it while you're young because don't want to look back in years and go, oh, I wish I would have done that when you can't do it. Like I said, I think that's going to be
Yep.
real torture is when you're too old or unable to do something anymore and you look back and then you say, oh, I could have done it, but I didn't do it. That's what's
Right.
that's what kind of selection was for me. Plus, I hated my unit. I mean, I got to my
Yeah.
unit. Uh, I was there. I went to the brief, I think the first week or two after I got to my unit.
Wow.
And I had already signed to go to selection. So I went to selection 90 days after I got to my unit. But field
That's
artillery just
wild.
wasn't, yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't, what was kind of which you didn't experience. So you never went to the regular
Nope.
army. You probably saw it more when you got to 160th though, because that's the most regular army of the special operations units, right?
No.
Oh, really?
No. Ranger regiment would be for sure.
Would you think so? Because you got to work
Yeah.
with
Oh
you
yeah.
got to work with everybody, right?
Yeah. No, we were. I would honestly say that 160th was more special operations than SF was. Like,
So they have soldiers though, right? From E1 all the way up
yeah,
in,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
SOAR.
They do,
So
but they're
there's
all support guys. Other than
okay,
the crew chiefs. The crew chiefs are,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
But because SF's the same way. You know what I mean? The support guys are there. There can still be like E4s and stuff. So
yeah.
it's similar in that regard.
It was always interesting because you could tell when a new guy came in who was going to be, you could work with this guy and who was going to be a problem because how they would
Yep.
just the guys or the girls that would just show respect to whoever because they didn't know who everybody was. Because
Yep.
at group everybody's just wearing PTs,
Yep.
um, and then they're just kind of talking like, oh, Joe from the block or whatever, and he goes, hey man, that's a sergeant major. Fucking, if you
Yeah.
haven't noticed, we're all just kind of
Yeah.
relaxed around here. But you ever come in here acting like that again, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yep.
So,
Like
but
situational awareness, man.
so you didn't have that side on the regular army, but I got done with basic and AIT, and I get to my unit, and I go, what the fuck is this? And I was like,
Yeah.
let's go do something else. Where you started off, let's go to this level. Um,
Yep.
so we get into the course, and you're not once you get to the course. Everybody's kind of even playing field. You're not really an
Yeah.
X-ray anymore because now everybody's been accepted into this pipeline. How was
Yep.
that for you? Because you passed selection, and then what comes up for you? Was it
So
IUW or was it
CLT is what they called it back then. But yeah,
CLT? So we do the
yeah,
combined leaders
yeah. They
training.
didn't have IUW yet.
Uh,
So it was CLT, which was basically a 3-week smoke fest, like for for us. You went to that too, didn't you? But it was IUW when you went through.
we were in the barracks, and it wasn't. The cadre kind of showed us slides for 6 hours a day. And then at
Okay.
the end, we had a test. I think there might have been a PT test, but there might not have been. We did skits. We made fun of the cadre. It was actually a
Yeah.
pretty professional, loose professional thing. The cadre didn't really want to be there. We didn't really want to be
Yeah.
there. So it was kind of so as long as everybody passed and did well in PT, there was no problems.
That's good.
Um,
They must have taken a look at CLT and been like, yeah, this is just a smoke fest. Like we're not really accomplishing anything here.
yeah, it was. Well, when I went through, there were stories of the cadre like abusing the, the students, and that wasn't that long ago. So that was probably around the
Yeah,
time
dude.
that you were going
Yep.
through of some
Yep.
wild stories that I actually can't repeat. Like I'm like that can't be true.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So
I never experienced the ones that you're talking about, but we did have like the 2 a.m. Cadre coming in, waking everybody up, totally off script, just pissed off, and making us go do burpees and stuff. But
yeah, because his old lady kicked him out of the house because he was drunk
right,
again.
probably,
Motherfucker.
yeah,
Jesus Christ,
exactly.
dude.
Yeah.
Go get some counseling. Stop drinking so
Yep.
much.
Yep.
So so what MOS did you get saddled up with?
I was a Charlie. So I
Yeah.
was originally a Bravo, and then there was another dude going to Okie, so I switched with him because he didn't want it, and I wanted Charlie, so it worked out.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Is that
So
what
we
you were?
both. Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
So before that we got SUT. I hated
Yep.
SUT, but
Yeah. I did
how was
too.
it for you? But you must have you came from did any of the skills you learned in infantry basic carry over
Man,
into there?
kind of,
Yeah.
but not really. Just and SUT was really where I felt like an X-ray, right? Like I
Well, that's
mentioned
where you
team
get
week.
your first
Yeah.
command structure, right? So you got
Yes.
your captain or your staff sergeant or sergeant first class, and that starts
Yep.
to put everybody into a lineage. So you start to look at how the army actually is, because up to this point
Hmm.
everybody's just off doing their own thing. So we're in some structure. How was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. That's when I mean, I passed, right? Like I wouldn't say I crushed it. I did enough to pass my patrols, but I was definitely not confident as a leader at that point. You know, I was very much like, I know what to do and I'm going to do it, but I did not have the self confidence behind what I was doing, if that makes sense. You know, I was just kind of like, all right, I got to do its pass, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, the X-ray program and I think gives guys more leeway to because there is that understanding of they didn't have because years ago it was everybody was coming from a
Mm-hmm.
regular army unit and moving over and coming into group or regiment. So I think there's a little more leeway and they understanding as long as you're making an improvement, and that's your whole career, right? That's your whole
Yeah. Yeah.
journey is you're trying to just keep building on the last thing you did. We get
Yep.
these gates, or let's just keep going, and you don't want to get worse. That's when they
Right.
drop off and get dropped out of the course. But yeah, SUT, I didn't really like it. SEER, everybody says, oh, it was the greatest course that the Army teaches, but it's still while you're there, it was fucking
You don't want to
horrible.
do it again.
You
Yeah.
don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
and you
for
can, and you
sure.
can really only kind of tell the stories in a group of guys that were already
Yep.
there, and you kind of everybody's
Yep.
huddled up. That's anytime you're at a school in the Army and you see guys huddled up, you're like, are they talking about? Because everybody's talking about stupid seer stories and shit like that.
Yep. Exactly.
So, but so Charlie course, what
Yeah.
did you think of that? I enjoyed it.
I did too, man. It was run really professionally.
Yeah.
The instructors really were like extremely competent, which is cool to see, right? Um, and I just thought it was awesome, man. Learning like the construction part of it. Um, that's kind of it wasn't really like super interesting to me. That was more just like, let's do it and let's learn it. But the demo, man, the demo was so much fun. Like seeing all the ways you can deploy demolitions is was fascinating to me, right? Like
And now
this,
we got it. We have our yeah. I think the Charlie course, especially, and somewhat in the Bravo course, the Delta course is meant to save your life, keep
mm-hmm.
you alive and things like that. But an Echo's Camo, but most in the Charlie course, right? You're now introduced to that next level of I can die right now. I could
Yeah,
kill all the people around me also
yeah,
with just one fuck up. Because
yeah,
you get in the Charlie course, so you pass the construction phase and then you pass calc in place,
yep,
right? And then you start dealing with live demo. And I
yeah,
mean, shit, this much will kill you and all your buddies standing around.
yeah, yeah. This
Uh,
is crazy.
so that's like another thing. So you've got student stress. And what do you think of that? Like because I remember thinking nothing about dying
Right.
while I was in the
No, me
course. But
neither.
now looking
Me neither.
back, we were dealing with this, angry Play-Doh that they say that could just eviscerate you. Gone.
Yeah,
You wouldn't even know that you're dead. And now
yeah.
looking back, you go, we were just doing it, right? And what do you think of that?
That is funny because I'm the same way, right? Like you don't. I didn't think about it that way because you have all this. You have a mission, right? Like your mind's so focused on what you need to get done that you don't. Yeah, you don't really grasp the reality of what you're doing. Other than blasting caps, I was like, I was really nervous about blasting caps for some, just because they're so. Yeah, that was the one thing for some reason that I remember being like, all right, like don't f this up.
That was one of the things where you said the instructions out loud and not in your head.
Yeah,
All right, crimp
exactly.
the
Yep.
blasting cap a half inch from the top, turn 90
Yep.
degrees, crimp the. All right, does that look good to you? Shit.
Yeah.
Um, did you get on? Did you pass on time fuse or did you have the electronic?
Electronic. I don't even
Did
know
you?
what that is. No, what is
The
that?
didn't some guys have the electric blasting caps in the exercise during the Charlie course?
Oh, we didn't. So everybody had to do time fuse when I went through.
Okay.
Um, but then we did the electric later
Okay. I
in the
think some
course.
guy.
Yeah.
The whole course is a weird memory, right? Because you
I
start
agree.
talking and you start talking, and it goes. Now it was over, and it went by
Yep.
so fast. Like all
Yeah.
we did was eat, work out, do some portion of the course,
Right.
and then when you had free time, you just got so obliterated drinking with your
Yep.
buddies that
Yep.
somebody got kicked out of the course, and you just hoped it wasn't you.
Oh
That
man,
was
I had a close encounter one time.
mm,
We went out, yeah, we went out drinking, and we had, like, you know how we do when you're young, you have a ruck the next morning. Who cares? You're still gonna go out. So I think it was a Thursday night. I don't remember what phase it was in. It was towards the end actually. So, but it was a Thursday night. We all go out there, see Thursdays, and I don't get back to the barracks till like 3 a.m. And I'm pretty sure we were catching a bus. So maybe it was for the Charlie course. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. So we had to be at the bus at 5 a.m. And 5 a.m. comes and my phone starts ringing, and I'm still in bed, and I literally got dressed and everything in less than like 3 minutes and somehow made it to the bus before it left. Like, dude, I was terrified. Like, that was it. I would have been done. Like,
yeah.
that one day. It's crazy.
You look back at little moments because I had a couple scares in the course, but they were little things here and there, or whatever. But you look back and go, I could have lost all that progress with
Yeah.
just being a minute late or something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just for being an
yeah,
idiot, you know?
yeah, just yeah. But
Yeah.
that was the thing. That was the thing. Guys partied in the Q course
Oh, yeah.
hard when they had
Oh,
free
yeah.
time. I remember I was talking to myself the other day. You just start laughing. I had this buddy in the course, and they had a group, and they would go out and go hard every weekend. And
Oh,
I was like, "Hey man, what are you guys doing this weekend? We get some Four Locos. We're gonna get loked out,
yeah.
and then I'll see you on Monday." Like, what do you mean? "Oh, we're just gonna get blackout drunk, and then we're gonna see where it goes." Oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, cool, man. I'll see you at Sear on Monday. Fuck.
God, dude, I know. That's like the theme of the Q course, man. Like,
But
it's
that was
crazy.
like, there's a time in real life, civilian life, or in the military, like you're off, you're off. You're like, it's time to turn it off.
Right.
And then a lot of the guys in the Q course, and especially SF guys, like just they would do whatever the fuck they wanted when they had it turned off, and then they would turn it on, and they're right there, like razor's
That's,
edge,
yep.
the fucking killers, the best soldiers in the world, right?
Yep. Isn't that
And they
amazing?
just on. And I was that way, but
Me too.
mine was with being serious. So when we're on, I was serious. Let's do this. We're here. And then the second it was time, the mission was over or whatever, dick joke. Just
Nice.
right to be the most unserious person, not taking anything seriously, complaining about the whole thing. And that's how it was. And that's the Q course. That's being in group. That's
Yep.
everything. Because
Yeah.
you
We're
got to
like the, go ahead.
dark humor. It's dark humor. Everybody,
Yeah.
because we're just coping. Some psychologists will say that well, we're just coping with trauma. Well, fuck, who gives a shit?
Which is true, but it's also
Yeah,
effective, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, it
yeah.
is. Like, it's, yes, we are doing that, but it's also effective. Yeah, man, it's interesting. I always say, like, special operations, we're like the most highly functioning alcoholics in the universe. You know what I mean? Like, we're just so good at what we do, but we party hard for sure.
Yeah. It is unfortunate that like alcohol has become so ingrained into military life, right?
Yeah.
Because, and this is the way I describe it, you enter the military and you go off to this other planet that has nothing to do with the planet you came from. You're in a different world. You're in a fenced in compound with different
Yep.
people, different laws, different rules, and you're totally segregated. You don't even see your family anymore because you get 30 days off a year that you can't use.
Yeah.
And when you do go home, you message your friends, "Hey, come out and see me." Oh, they don't want to drive to come see you, even though
Yeah.
they don't understand your life anymore. You don't understand their life anymore. And it's completely different. So you've got these friends on base, and you just pressure all the time. And so alcohol, to relieve that pressure, you got barracks
Yeah.
parties, people drinking way too much, DUIs, all kinds of alcohol related incidents. It's too
For sure.
bad because soldiers and Green Berets, like, we're good at taking it to that next level, right? And unfortunately, we take drinking to the one
Yes.
after that, and it
Yeah.
causes problems. But so you saw that from the guys in the course as well.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, to be honest, I was one of those guys that was drinking all the time. You know, like luckily it never, other than that one incident, it never really, affected anything negative. Well, yeah, there was never any big incidents other than that one. And I was 21 years old at the time, so I was the type of guy that could drink 12 beers and then wake up and run, a 5 miler
Not
in 30 minutes,
not
like
not anymore.
I was just,
Not
yeah,
anymore.
not anymore. That's for sure. I barely even drink anymore because of that. Like
Yeah, I don't drink
it's,
anymore. 11.
yeah,
What are we? Let's see. We're 11 months sober. So
heck yeah. Good for you, man.
yeah.
Good for you.
So
Yeah. It's
uh,
kind of interesting how your mentality shifts. I don't know if it's getting out of the military and just being away from the culture, but like even on Super Bowl Sunday, man, I just like, I had like 2 beers and I was like, I'm good. Whereas years prior, I would have been like, let's keep going all night, So it's kind of weird.
for me, it became a problem. It became a real problem,
Yeah. Yep.
and that's had to shut it down. That
Well,
was going to end my life. It was
yeah.
not going to
Yep.
turn out well. So I don't drink anymore. Turned everything into the gym.
Good for you.
Back working out. I work out probably 6 to 7 days a week, but not as hard as people think. From looking at me, like I do strength training, I think 3 days a week, and then I do cardio 3 to 4 days a week.
Nice.
But yeah, I've just
Good for you,
moved that
man.
into that, changed my
Yeah.
diet around, and stay away from it. It really. I'm not. I would always see people's posts about sober this or getting away from alcohol. I was like, the alcohol is not to blame. It's the person you become when you drink alcohol. That's the
Yeah.
person to blame.
Absolutely.
And some
Yep.
people can't keep it controlled. I used to be able to, and
Yeah.
then one day I couldn't. One day I couldn't keep it, and I just kept piling that on and piling that on. And luckily, it didn't
That's
adversely affect my career in the military, but a lot of guys, did.
Yeah,
So
man. Absolutely. That's unfortunately like the primary coping mechanism that most of us go to. Like we'll probably get into it later, but I went through like some deep dark depression, right? And I tried to use alcohol as a band-aid for it, and that's what a lot of people do, whether they want to admit it or not.
yeah, every I firmly feel everybody that comes on the show and talks to me is going to have to a lesser or a more degree the same story about
Yep.
that path and where they are
Yep.
now in it. But so yeah, we'll get into it here and there. We'll bounce back and forth. But
Yeah.
Robin Sage, the big exercise at the end. Did you get to be the cool guy that did all the fun shit, or did you hang out at the fob like I did after getting your go on the first mission?
So I got to be the cool guy, kind of. So I was in one of those scenarios where they took us to like a local spot and we like played poker with the locals and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a chick there that obviously her role was to you know, try to seduce one of the guys. And unfortunately, I got picked. So, and I was engaged at the time too. So I'm like, man, I can't like. Everybody's like, man, you got to build rapport, but at the same time, like in real life, I'm engaged. So I'm like tiptoeing that. So yeah, I got to experience that, which was super awkward for me. Um,
That's how
but
Robin
no,
Sage is. It's awkward.
yeah,
It's meant to make it awkward and weird things like that. I have a similar story from Sear, but yeah, they put you in a situation where you're like, okay, because a lot of them are it's a trap, right? Because
yep,
back
exactly,
in the old days, the G chiefs they would sit up late with the officers or the senior NCOs, and they'd be giving them bourbon while they're drinking water, right? And then they
mm,
would keep drinking it, and the next day they'd blow them out of the camp or something like that,
yep,
or they'd have a meeting, and it's a trap. You're trying to see how you can keep your composure in a
yep.
situation. They can't do that anymore because alcohol's not a great thing to have, but it'll teach you a hangover will teach you a powerful
Oh,
lesson when you're in training when all these guys are depending on you. So all those
absolutely.
situations, it's a trap, but it can be that's what the whole thing is, right? You do something and then you learn from it. That's what the
Right.
course is teaching. It's all building
Yep.
on top of that. I don't know. We graduated. Robin said, "Did you guys have language at the beginning or the end?"
Yeah. Yep. We did it first. So it
You
was
did
the
it
first
first.
6 months.
So you
Yeah.
guys pass Robin Sage, and then you get your beret, and then off to your unit,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Found out where I was going, I think a week after Sage. So we didn't
Yep.
find out before. So it was, yeah, a week after. And then,
But you'd
yeah,
already
I
done
thought I was,
language.
we already did language. So I knew I was going to first group, but
Okay. Yeah.
I ended up in Okinawa. So I was like, I thought I was going to first group. And then a week after Sage, it was like, boom, you're going to Oki. So
Or
it's kind
did
of
you
a
go to which company did you go to?
alpha company.
Okay. So you weren't in the
Yeah.
CRIF?
No, I wasn't in, I never went to the CRIF.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
um, how was it for graduation for you, right? Because you said you joined for reason A, and was that
Yep.
reason the same when you got your beret and you got tabbed and all that? Was that had your reason for being a Green Beret changed at that point?
Man, that is a great question. Um, I think it turned into more of like a brotherhood, right? Instead of this like vast accomplishment I wanted to do. I think that's like the biggest mind shift that I had was like, cool. Now I'm like, I'm really part of something that like matters, and is doing great things in the world. I think that's the real mind shift that I didn't understand before I even joined, of like the gravity of what I was doing, because I
Mm-hmm.
was pretty naive when I joined. So I really think that was the biggest like mind shift was just like I actually understood what I was going to do, and was proud of it and excited for it.
Yeah, you learn a lot more about the history and the
Yeah.
lineage of being a Green Beret, and as you
Yep.
go through the course, you get more and more proud, right?
Exactly.
You get
Yeah.
built up, and you're learning, and then you get to this crescendo, and you get your beret and your tab, but then you get your orders to go to your unit, and you kind of start realizing, oh shit, I'm a nobody again. How was
Yeah.
how was
Yeah.
that? So you graduate, and because you had to go Oconus, which is first our whole first battalion of first group is stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and so you went to Alpha Company. So how was that transition like? Because now you've never been in the military, you've never had to do a move or anything. Everything was really kind of done for you up to this point, and
Yep.
now they've handed you a sheet of paper and said, "Okay, here's your report date. Figure it out." What,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
now you're a sergeant also. So you're not a private, but you have the same amount of time in service as a private,
Yep.
but you're a sergeant, so you're even more expected to figure it out. How was that
Mhm.
process of going, how do I get to Japan? Or
Dude,
was there some direction?
it was luckily there were other X-rays with me that were going to Oki, so we kind of like battle buddied it and figured it out together. But one other like variable or curveball was so I mentioned I got engaged before Sage, so we got married the day after I graduated the Q course, and we basically were, and she was in ROTC, so she was at East Carolina University in
Yeah.
ROTC. It was her senior year, so we kind of were like, it would have been easier to get her to Lewis, right, to JBLM as a officer, but now I'm going to Oki, so we're like, crap, like, how are you gonna get out to Okinawa with me? So are we gonna be separated for the next couple of years? So that was the hardest thing to figure out. And she wasn't graduating for another like 6 months anyway, so I ended up going there unaccompanied at first. But the weirdest thing was just when we got there, man. Like the team, our company was in Afghanistan when we got to Okinawa. So there were, I think, 5 or 6 of us X-rays that just got to the unit, and we were just hanging out with the rear D guys. And I don't know if you, no, probably not, but Jeremy Border was on ODA 111, 1111, sorry. And he actually, he passed away like, I think it was a week after we got to the company and they were still in Afghanistan. So we're just like, shit, like we just felt hopeless, and then the company gets back, we don't know anybody, they're in this, it was just a weird, very weird dynamic, especially
Mm-hmm.
being a brand new X-ray. Like honestly felt like we were not in the right spot. Like we did not feel like we were part of the company for a while. At least I didn't. It took a couple trips to actually feel good.
Yeah, that's your next shock to the system, right? You get to the unit, and
Yeah.
there's pictures up in the hallway of guys that were in that hallway
Mm-hmm.
that went on a trip, that deployed to combat or wherever it was, and they didn't make it back. And those were, and then their teammates are still in that hallway.
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
shock to the system, right? And you've got to fit in with these guys, and you're an X-ray, so you've got a
Yep.
few things working against you. And with the new guy thing, because I've talked about, there's the operator attitude, right? Or the in the team room, and guys act a certain way. I mean, you've got a bunch of fucking train killers all
Yep.
in this room together, and there's a lot of pent up anger, testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
uh, dick jokes, more dick jokes, lots of dick jokes. But
Yep.
it's really just it's interesting environment. How did you, so you went to, is that, did you go to 111,
I went to
1,
1112.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
What's the
Well,
specialty on that team?
so we were a recce team originally, and then it morphed into a mobility team. So we just ended up
Okay.
kind of being the jack of all trades ish. Yeah.
And then, but they had just got back from Afghanistan, so
Yep.
they're not going,
Yep.
for, did you do a combat rotation or no?
I
Not with the
didn't,
team?
man. I got no AFP, but I was like, I had the cushy, job at working with the Filipino
Okay.
soldiers. So I never went down south. So no, I didn't really do any like combat operations in my SF time,
Yeah,
which is
that's all
kind of
right.
weird, right?
No, I mean, I didn't get to
But
either.
yeah,
I got to my unit in, I think I signed in on Christmas, after Christmas block leave, 2015. Went through the in processing on Fort Lewis and got to my team or my company sometime in January, I think, maybe in February. And God, went to 1335 dive team, terrible in
okay,
the water. And I, our first real training exercise together as a team, we went and did some beach landing seizure training in
nice.
Astoria, Oregon. And I got 2 concussions out on the ocean and then one the next day. Uh,
Dang.
and that, I had a history of concussions that ended my career. I went to
Oh
staff
man.
after that I was in support for 3 years and then got medically retired when we came down on orders to Afghanistan. So, but yeah, I took that real hard. That's the only thing I'll never get
Yeah.
over, is not being able to deploy to combat as an SF guy. But I don't have any holes in me. Never got
Yeah.
blown up, and I can
Yeah.
do stuff like this. I can speak for other people too. If somebody doesn't
Yep.
want to talk about themselves, I'll talk about them. Now I can do this. I can have them on and things like that. So it's really pushed
Yeah.
me that direction. But yeah, I
That's
get what you
great.
mean there, because the training that we do as SF guys or special operations guys is to go to war, right?
Right.
And
Right.
you always have that feeling or that thought in your mind: could I have done it? Do you have that
For
thought?
sure.
You
For
want to know if you
sure.
knew how to play chess or not?
For sure, man. Yeah. Yeah. You don't know how you're going to react when the bullets are flying, right? Like, and it's totally different. Like I deployed as a helicopter pilot, but it's night and day difference, right? Like you're in an aircraft. You're not on the ground exposed, to gunfire.
Yeah,
So totally different. And
you
you
got to
don't you don't
shoot.
like you don't hear it, because the helicopter's so loud. So you're just yeah.
They're a little
Oh,
loud. Yeah,
that was a
whatever.
tracer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to the team. You're on 11, 12. How was that coming up as a new guy and just kind of fitting into the team structure? How was your team and your team sergeant and your team leader? Did you fall into what you thought was a good environment, or because you just did the one enlistment as a
Yep.
uh, I guess on a team, because you're always a GB. So what would it be as a team guy,
As
and then
a
you went to
as a Charlie. Yeah. Yeah. So I
as a
did.
Charlie? That's it.
Yep. So team was great, man. Like it was really the true after the initial like kind of proving to the older dudes that you're not a shitbag. Then it was great. I had an awesome senior Charlie who really like really turned into like a big brother to me. You know what I mean? Like really took on that role of being a mentor, which was great. I mean, he gave me shit all the time, of course, but in a brotherly way type of thing. So we had a really good group of guys. It was a younger team though. I think 5 of us were extras or new guys. And you know how teams are, they're always light. So I think we had 10 dudes at the
Mm.
most at one point. But yeah, once the senior Charlie, I think he was there for a year, and then I ended up being the only Charlie on the team for a while, so I had to kind of step up big time there after a year. But it was good. Yeah, I loved my team. I had an awesome experience with them.
That's good to hear. Yeah, because you'll see, and when you're on a team, you only got those good guys, right?
Yeah,
That's your whole life. That's all your kids. And if you have a bad team or a bad couple guys, that can be really a miserable experience because you spend all of your time in the team room or
yeah,
training with the guys out on the range or doing whatever. That's your whole life. There's
yeah,
nothing outside of that. And you don't realize until you go to the B team or you go to support that all you got all these segmented teams kind of that have nothing to do with one another. And you kind of, it is a segmented existence on a team. Did you experience that kind of how it was at yours?
for sure. Yeah, like we had like sister teams, like actually ODA 1111. It's really hard to say.
Right
Was
across the
was like
hallway.
yeah, they were right next door, so like we'd do a lot of trips with them or the other team next door. But yeah, one of the thing that I wanted to bring up, because one of the coolest things about being on an ODA is seeing how like a team leader assimilates to the NCO environment, because I was fortunate to have like really good team leaders, humble guys who were basically didn't knew that they weren't the team sergeant, right? Like they didn't try to like be overbearing and stuff. But I've seen the opposite too, where people are like, man, F that guy, like, so I don't know. I don't know why that thought just popped in my head. It's kind of interesting to see how captains react when they're surrounded by NCOs and yes, they're in charge, but they're not running the ship per se, you know?
No, yeah, they're in charge. It's their
Right.
signature
Technically.
on the
Yeah.
on the property book, and they're the one that's going to go to jail when the crimes are
Mm-hmm.
committed.
Yep.
And they have to go stand in front of the commander when their guys fuck up, which they will.
Right.
But it is, yeah, it's a short. I haven't had an officer on yet to talk about their perspective on things, but officers are only on the team for 18 months to 24
Right.
months,
Yeah.
whereas you've got some guys that'll be on a team off and on for 10 years.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's a different dynamic where you kind of have somebody that's a temporary procedure, and by the time they get spun up to where they need to be, it's time to go. Um,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
And
So
hopefully they got the experience they needed, right, to command or do whatever's next for them.
yeah, go be, but yeah, it's interesting. I look forward to having some officers on and talk to them about their pathway of things, but it's totally different. Because you might get a company when you make major, you might not.
Right.
You might go to some regular Army unit, your staff or things like that, or
Mm-hmm.
you might not even be in a special operations unit. You probably will be, but you might not. You might be needs of the Army.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. And so what? How did you? You spoke about it earlier that you got married. How did you balance the family life after being on the team for a bit? How did that work itself out? Because that's got to be all right. I know it is work stressful having a relationship
Yeah.
over an ocean.
Yeah. So it was luckily like the first 6 months when she was still in school. I was on trips for the most part. So we did a JSIP to the Philippines, and then it was like a JSIP plus where we did Nepal and then the Philippines back to back. So it was like a 4+ month trip. So I was gone for most of it, which was nice. And then when she graduated, she initially got orders to brag actually, and and we were like, okay, like how's this gonna work, Um, but we pulled some strings. She grew up on West Point. Her dad was a West Point uh, colonel, Fulbird,
Mm.
so we were fortunate to know people that got her orders to Okinawa, which was kind of frustrating because the moment he stepped in, she had orders the next day. And I was like, cool, we've tried everything on our own and you guys don't care until a colonel steps in. But it's the reality of
That's
politics and how things go.
it's the
But
same in civilian life and in the
yep,
military. You don't get to do anything unless you know somebody.
yep,
It's
yep.
like, oh, hey, I want to go on this trip. Well, the sergeant major. If you're good buddies with the sergeant major, you're good buddies with the commander or whatever. I mean,
Absolutely.
some stuff you make of like going to the course and doing all
Yeah.
that. You make that way yourself, but especially on a team,
Oh
once you
yeah.
get accepted, as you said earlier, accepted onto the team, then they make shit happen for you, and you make shit
Yep.
happen for them. You work together, and
Yep.
then you got a good team, you get a good rating, and sergeant major will make shit happen for your team. And if you suck, then the shitty things are going to
Yep.
happen for you. And it's kind of like that in the civilian world, right? I was messaging my sister. I said something about it. It's like I've never gotten a job from just a posting. It's always been I
Yeah.
knew somebody there, or I
Yeah.
knew somebody that recommended it to me, or I got a text said, "Hey, we got this going on." It's
Yep.
always, "Hey, I
Yeah.
know this person. They're really good. Oh, perfect. Bring them on." And that's how it always is. So yeah, it's just funny. Yeah, once this colonel
Yeah.
steps in, oh, you can see that
Yeah.
bird on the shoulder. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
listen to this guy.
The
But
next day. Yeah. She literally had orders the next day. So yeah, she came out to Oki. She was a signal officer. So she was working on one of the Marine bases there. And so it was great, man. We were like the first year that she was out there, like we had a great time. I was gone still a lot. You know how the life is, especially on Oki, because you're just JSIT after JSIT or
yeah,
school, going CONUS to go to jump master school, all the schools, whatever. But then our son was born in 2014, so March 2014. And this was a month before I was going on OEFP. And that was a 6 month rotation. So I left when he was like 3 weeks old. And that was really when I was like, man, like, I don't know if I want to do this lifestyle and be a dad concurrently.
hmm
And not to like bash anybody that does it. People make it work all the time, but I did look at some of my team sergeants or like the senior dudes, and their prioritization of family was a lot different than mine, or
they
the
don't. We
picture
don't
of.
make it. We don't make it work.
Yeah.
The
So
family we as if you want to be now not this isn't every case, but
right,
I
of
what I
course.
saw is if you want to be successful as a Green Beret, you have to put your family like fourth or fifth.
Right. Right.
And guys
And
will almost every time do that. Almost
yeah,
every time.
yeah.
And
It's unfortunate. I mean, yeah, it's the reality, right? Like it's just one of those jobs that you have to be all in. So on that OEFP rotation, that's when I started getting my flight packet together, and I looked at aviation as the next step, a little more, I don't know, relaxed lifestyle, I guess. That was kind of my mentality going into
we
it.
going back to your back to a pilot now, right? Because
Yeah.
now
Yep.
you got an impressive resume. Now
Yeah.
you're
Right.
in
Right.
you're E6 now.
Yep.
Uh, did you end up getting a degree when you were in college or no? Or did
I
you
got
finish
I
that?
just got my associates, and that's
That's
it
enough.
at that point. I did get a bachelor's later on, but I got my associates by that point. Yeah. By the
Okay.
time I dropped my flight packet.
Yeah, so E6, Green Beret, you got time in service.
Yep.
So was it a little bit of an easier application process from
Yeah.
being in? Because you're already in now. Now you don't have to wait around and kind of twiddle your
Yep.
thumbs. What was that
Exactly.
like when you dropped the packet? And how was your command supportive of that?
Yeah, they were. I mean, I got like the little digs, right? The shit for it, but for the most part they weren't facetious about it. Like they understood what I was trying to do and why I wanted to do it. So yeah, I got shit for it, but it wasn't. It was out of love.
I think it's worse when they don't give you shit for it. If they give you shit, then
Probably.
they care about you. But if they don't,
Yeah.
then if they don't give you shit, then you kind of start thinking, "Am I a shitbag?
They're probably
They
happy you're leaving. Yeah.
they don't want me here."
Yeah.
So I guess that can be a little more. But when something like that happens, when you go to your leadership and you lay out a reason for why you want to do something, and then they think about it and accept that, that's when you find out if you have good leaders or bad leaders or
Dude.
not.
Yes. And I'm
Because
sure you
they're
experienced that.
NCOs,
Yes.
and officers. Their job is to support the people that worked for them to
Mm-hmm.
lead. No one is more professional than I, um, and I'm a leader of soldiers, right? They're supposed to lead you and mentor you and take care of you. Um, and when you come to them with a problem, that can really show you the, I guess, the climate in the unit you're in is when
Yeah.
they say, "Okay, yeah, that's cool," or they do make fun of you and things like that. Because the
Yeah.
army runs on like I said, dark humor and making fun of dudes. But that's good.
Yep.
So they were supportive
Yeah.
when you went to them and laid it out.
Yep. Yeah. It was really, which felt good, right? Because it's nerve wracking when you got to tell your command a big thing like that. You don't know how it's going to go. I was also fortunate. One of our sister teams had a new team leader who was actually a CW3 warrant officer Black Hawk pilot before. So
Mm-hmm.
this dude had done enlisted time as a crew chief, went flight school, made it all the way up to W3, and then was like, I'm going to revert and go to being a lieutenant and then go to SF. Like he had it's pretty amazing, like the drive that dude had. But he helped me a lot, like get my packet
There's
together.
there's dudes that will do anything to get back on a team. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, you hear stories in the Q course about guys, and you don't know if it was your class because you were so focused right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the
Yep.
stories, you don't know if it was while you were there or whatnot. But I recall that there was an 18 Alpha or an 11 Alpha or something like that, infantry officer coming through the course, and he was a cadre at selection as an 18 Charlie or whatever, as an
Whoa.
E7, went and was a team sergeant, did his whatever years on the team, got off the team, decided he wanted to go back and became an officer and went back through the course years later.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and then I've only heard, haven't met anybody. I've heard of captains resigning their commission and going back warrant or trying.
I
I haven't
have
heard
heard of
anybody
that.
going enlisted, but I would venture to say that had happened. But
Yeah.
that's for anybody listening here. Like that is the environment on a team. If you're on a good team, it's like drugs. You
Mm-hmm.
just you can't get off of it because you're on a team and your guys are invincible, right? You can do anything, you can go anywhere, you can teach foreign militaries in foreign places, speaking a different language, and you're fit, you're strong, you can do anything on this team, and you just want to do anything you can to stay on that team. Was that kind of how you
Yeah.
experienced team life?
Absolutely, man, and especially in Okinawa, right? Because it's your family. It turns into your legit family. Like everything you do is with them, whether you're gone on a trip or you're back in garrison. Like it was just, yeah, 100%
Yeah,
for sure.
it's something. So we're you got that path, and it was probably pushed that direction because of the family decision, right? You wanted to go a little different pace of life, so you're
Yep.
going that. Did you ever think about um, going to some of the other selections for a higher units or things like that, or was it not really an option?
No, I never really did. I think that if I would have stayed in group longer, that probably would have been a thought. Because I saw dudes doing it, and I was like, that's pretty awesome. But since I got picked up for flight school, that was kind of, and I was still, I mean, I'd been on a team 3 years at that point, so I wasn't like a senior guy yet, that felt like I was ready to go do that. I
Hmm.
still, the only thing that I wish I had done in my group time, other than getting some combat time, but I really wish I went to Ranger School, man. I know that's like a polarizing thing, but I just wish I did it just to say I did it.
Very difficult from first group. Very
Yeah, it
difficult to do
really
from
is.
first group. I think third and fifth and seventh have a much better chance.
Yeah.
It's like they're third. No, fifth and third are right at the top, and then seventh is below them. 10th is
Yep.
below that, and then first, and then I think it's even harder in National Guard. Uh,
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
they have almost no chance. But I'll have to check with a National Guard guy on that, so don't quote me on that. But
Yeah.
we're so far away. Yeah, Ranger School would have been
Right.
something. But I had my one buddy Johnny. He came back and he goes, it just was stupid. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, that's what I've heard too. It's just something you get through, like you just grind and put yourself through it.
And he
But
even said it's just like, you can fail or pass based on how the cadre are paying attention or not paying attention.
mm,
So he said, was it, am I glad I did it? Yeah. Could I live without it? Also, yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know.
so,
I would have liked to have had it too, but one thing I've learned and coming to terms with is somebody's always got more awards than you. They've got
yeah,
more schools than you. Somebody
of
can lift
course,
more than you, run faster than you. They're smarter than you. But there's
of
also the
course,
people on the inverse of that, right? And you just got to
yes,
be happy with the way things went. I raised my hand twice. I did everything my country asked me to do for the
yep,
8 years that I was in, and I'll be happy with that. I would have liked to have gone to
you,
combat, the same as
yeah.
you, but I would also, like being
Yeah,
alive.
you're
So
alive, right? You're
whatever.
alive, and now you can. Yeah, yeah.
It's an
I
interesting,
know.
it's an interesting thing to say because guys will say, "Oh, you didn't miss out on anything." It's like, kind of, yeah. But if we switch places, I would say the same thing that you're saying, and you would say
Of
the same thing
course,
I'm saying
of
now because
course.
it's my perspective. Is that kind of how you
Yeah,
feel about it?
yeah.
It's a weird way of like an imposter syndrome type of
It,
feeling. Is
it
that
definitely
kind of how
is,
you
man.
feel?
Definitely, and especially because it's not in your control. Like if you can't like feel lesser than just because the timing didn't work out. You know what I mean? Like it's not like if Afghanistan came up when I was in group, I would have been like, no, I'm not going. You know what I mean? So it's just timing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's
No,
all
no,
yeah,
nobody. And when you get out, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
yeah, yeah.
They just care if you're a shitbag or not. Like if you're a
Yep,
nice person, you just be nice to like. I tell people
exactly.
right up front. I won't claim I didn't have any combat experience. I don't have this and that, but
Yep,
I do have the
same.
things I'm good at. So it's good to
Exactly.
to come to terms with, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
you've been on a team for a while. You're one of the toughest guys in the military, baddest motherfucker, right? We're not going to Delta selection, but now we're going to go be a pilot. Was that like how did you feel at that point making that decision to go off and be a pilot? Did you feel good about the place did you accomplish what you set out to accomplish when you made that decision?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I felt like it was the right decision, more like just for all the reasons of career progression. Even like looking at the financial side of being a warrant officer, right? And if I once I got out of the military, at least now I was a pilot and I could go do that and translate that to the civilian side if I wanted to. So it did feel like it was a building block from where I was on kind of like my future self, so yeah, I didn't have any like regrets or anything until I got to flight school, and we can get into that if you want.
Well, well, you just teed
Yeah.
me up there. No,
Uh huh.
so obviously flight school is going to be at an airfield, and I assume one not in Japan. Is it in
Yeah.
Georgia?
It's in Alabama, Fort Rucker,
Alabama.
Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
still called Fort Rucker? I don't think
They
so.
so I think they just switched it back though. It switched to Nova Cell, and I think it's now going back, just like Bragg's going back to Bragg. Did you see that recently?
Bragg's not going back to Bragg. It's
Oh, it's
going
not.
to another Bragg.
Right. Yeah. 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 Right. Correct. Correct. So,
Uh, I was
good
reading
point.
that and I went, "This is really clever, right? Because this is
Yeah.
really clever."
Yeah.
Because I associated it with the movie Rocky.
Yep. Absolutely.
Apollo Creed, and they're going through the book of fighters, and they're going through and they go, the Italian stallion, perfect. And then
Yeah.
I can see Hegseth going down there, B, 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 R, B,
Yeah.
R, B, R, brag, Article 15, brag, three Article 15s, brag,
Yeah.
Purple Heart, ooh, we got something here, Article 15. And then he finally finds one where he's worthy
Yes.
of being a base named after, and then he just types
Yes.
up a memo real quick, and that's that Rocky Balboa moment. The
Yeah.
Italian, Roland Bragg.
Dude, I guarantee you that's what happened. That's so funny. Oh man, I wish I was a fly on the wall to see that.
So I thought it was just such because you can't go back on that, right? It was a
Yeah.
cop out to name it Liberty, and I
Yep.
think it was a cop out to leave it open to change it again later because Liberty is a terrible name.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
but then to call it the same thing, but just with a different person that's not a Confederate general,
Yep.
which I don't know how you feel about that, right? Because right after the Civil War, they passed a law that brought all the Confederate soldiers into the Union and made them all veterans of the United States.
Right.
Which war is a terrible thing, and I get it, the optics of things. I really disagreed with it, but we had a big war. Everybody was invited. War's really terrible,
Yep.
and you guys made a law after it in Congress. Congress did this, passed it, and they're all
Hmm.
veterans of the Union. So now you're kicking their names off.
Yeah, I disagreed with it too, man. I feel like they're obviously just political, decisions, but why are we trying to erase history? Like, it's still history, whether it's good or bad. Like, it's there for a reason. We don't need to erase it,
Yeah,
and
we
pretend
got
it
a
didn't
lot of bad.
happen.
We did some
Right?
terrible things to the
Yeah,
United. The
absolutely.
Americans did a lot of terrible things for a lot of time, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah. But you're. I don't know if you're pandering. You're looking to gain curry favor with one group, but I
Right.
think the army saw that, or the military saw that, as they were trying to curry
They're
favor with
being,
a group that we're never going to
yep.
serve.
Right.
You
Yeah, they're
know,
being progressive. Like,
and then it hurt their chances with the people that would serve. So I see things. As a politician, if the only time you're telling, or how do you know a politician's lying is when their mouth is moving, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that
I
goes into
know.
things like that. So it's I think it's pretty awesome that he found a way to
Yeah.
change it back to brag, because everybody called it brag still to
Still,
begin with.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Wow.
live 2 hours away from there, and yeah, I'd still say I'm going to brag when I
Going to
go
Fort
down there.
Bragg.
Yep.
Did you see that meme, that office meme,
No,
where it's
you got
like
to send it to me.
where he's like, it's Fort Bragg now, or it's Fort Liberty now, and then Michael's like, I'm going to call it Fort Bragg even harder.
Yeah, that's basically what happened.
That's what happened. Everybody
Yeah.
refused.
Yep.
All right, so I assume PCS'd from an island
Yep.
to the deep south.
Yep.
How
Yep.
was
With a
with a
6 month old baby, almost a year actually. It was almost a year at that point.
So you were the
Um,
guy on that flight with the crying
Yeah,
baby. I knew
exactly.
you looked
Oh,
familiar.
dude, I felt so bad. Like, so we were fortunate though. They had these like fold out like cribs in the
Yeah.
first row of the airplane, so we got to sit there, and there was like a crib that he got to lay in. But still, it was, I don't remember how long, 13-hour flight. So obviously, a 1 year old's not going to be good that whole time.
No, the 1 year
Yeah,
old's only good for a
yeah,
couple minutes. That's a long time.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
moving in the military is an interesting thing. So, like I said earlier, you get a sheet of paper, and then they go, "All right, well, figure it out."
yeah. Good luck.
So you got to go find this office, and then you don't know
Yeah,
you've never heard of this office. It's a one-room shack inside
yeah,
of another building, inside the food court, and you got to go talk to somebody that only works for a couple hours and get your move scheduled. How is that
yep.
process of PCSing for you?
Yeah, it was good because I had some time off, right? Like I think I took 30 days of leave in between, so I had a bunch of leaves built up. So that part was good. My wife got orders to Fort Benning when I was going to Fort Rucker, so we were again separated. I think it was a 3.5, 4 hour drive, something like that. So it was close enough that I could go there on the weekends. But I ended up getting a little apartment in Alabama, and then she got an apartment in Benning. We made that work for a little bit, and then but getting on to Fort Rucker, man, this was the culture shock I was talking about. So when you go to in process as a new warrant officer candidate, you rip off your staff sergeant rank and you put on this WOC black rank. It just says
Oh, yeah.
WOC. So you're nothing, man. You're a snowbird. You're less than the privates on Fort Rucker, essentially. So that was an interesting feeling, just being like, especially because I was in that position with guys that were high school to flight school, right? So guys that were brand new to the Army and had just done basic training. And now I'm literally on a level playing field. Like, yeah, I have a long tab, but pe- people on Fort Rucker, to be honest, like they don't really understand, I think,
Yeah.
what an SF dude actually is, right? So it's, yeah,
I get
it was a weird
Yeah, I
shift.
guess the only thing you would have would be the tab, right? So you got a different tab,
Yeah.
a different a tab, which people
Yep.
probably they don't see very often.
Right.
And on Army uniforms, and that's kind of where you missed out with the non-combat deployment, right? Because you don't have a
Yeah.
deployment patch on your other shoulder, so that would have
Yep.
been there. And then,
Well,
you know,
I did have a
oh, you
deployment
did.
patch
So you
because
went Philippines. You went
OEFP.
Philippines.
Yeah, OEFP. I got, yep, Philippines. I
Oh,
got the
so
deployment
at
patch.
least you're,
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah.
little ahead of the guys that are coming high school to flight school there. So you got a
Yeah.
little bit of the cheddar, as they
Yeah.
say. So
True.
that's good. But
Yep.
it could, hey man, listen, it could be much worse. You could have no
True.
tab and no
That's
deployment
true.
patch,
Yeah.
and you could be running around getting shit on all the time. So it can
No, that's
always
true.
be worse. It can always be
Absolutely.
worse.
Absolutely. Um, but yeah, Fort Rucker was, it was interesting. So when you first get there, you do all the in processing and stuff, and you're this warrant officer candidate. And the first thing that you do is you go to warrant officer candidate school, which is the indoctrination to make you a warrant officer, right? It was 5 weeks long, and man, that was the some of the dumbest things that I've ever done in the Army was in that course. Just like Ranger fuck games like nonstop. But you're also surrounded. It's not just pilots. It's not just pilot warrant officers. It's every MOS other than the SF and
Okay.
the guys that have their specific school. So you're in there with like cooks and all these support guys, and they're running around trying to play Army, having no idea what they're doing. And then there were a few. There was another former 160th guy who was coming now to be a pilot, so he had some special operations exposure at least, and me and him stayed pretty tight. But yeah, it was kind of weird going from the SF world to straight up like baseline TRADOC.
Yeah. But we were
But
taught that in SEER, right? We were
right,
taught how to, because it's all
exactly,
just, you're basically being, they think, the cadre think they're torturing you or they're smoking you or
right,
whatever. Meanwhile, you've done some really silly shit in some really silly courses, and you're just going,
right.
"Oh, this is terrible. I wish it would end." And
Yeah,
meanwhile, in your mind, you're like, "This is, I'm not even at a one right now."
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
so I
yep,
get that. Yeah, but yeah, they have to have a blanket course. The Army has to have a
yeah,
blanket course for everything that encompasses everybody. So it's got to be
yep,
this whatever. Yeah,
yep,
all schools in the
yeah,
military. You kind of whatever, whatever.
yeah.
I don't know. I never
Just
went. Is
go.
there anything that stood out for you? Like, this was really good training here in that class, or no? You just
No, no, definitely not, man. It was everything I had either done already, in basic training or the pipeline, or it was just like educational stuff, about like warrant officer history and stuff, which whatever.
did
That
they
was
make
never.
you take a PT test?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was PT
So
test, and
I
you
imagine
live
so.
there, so you're like, it's like you live there and sleep there, so you're not like going home at night. It's like a full on like
Oh, you're in the
you're in it.
barracks.
Yeah, oh yeah. You
Fuck
don't get to see
yeah.
your family or anything. No phones. Like,
I love it.
yeah, I know. It
Well,
was wild.
this is because other than basic, right? This is really your first interaction with being in a regular Army unit, then, right?
Yeah.
So you get
Yeah.
to see how stupid things are. So if how was
Yes.
the PT test? Because you've got people for all walks of life coming in there.
Yeah.
How was that? Because you're used to
Man.
being in group where everybody's, for the most part, everybody's some sort of stud, right?
Yeah.
And now
Like
you get
300
over,
is the standard at group.
yeah, and now you get
Yeah.
over here, and how was that? Just seeing these people are in the military.
Dude. Yeah, dude. It's mind blowing, man. Like, it really is because we live in our bubble. We really do live in a bubble, and we think everybody's competent, just like SF. But dude, it's pretty mind blowing and eye opening that is very much not the case. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still good people and there's still
Yeah.
very capable people, but yeah, you definitely see the reality of the regular Army when everybody comes together in a course like that.
Mm,
But yeah,
yeah. And nothing against that, but you do see the
right,
levels of, because I envision, especially being in group, and when I got there, this is how soldiers should be at this
Right.
level. And it's just not the case for
No.
95% of the military. It's just not
Yeah.
the case. Um, but there's, as in anywhere, there's support roles and things like that. And not everybody's going to be, as I said earlier, not everybody's going to put their family fourth or fifth a
Yeah.
lot and
Yeah.
do the things, because the mission in SF, and then it'll change.
Yep.
You'll have more family life or things, and the United States military is very good at killing people, and
Yeah.
and as you get into more elite units, that becomes more and more of your job,
Oh yeah.
and to be proficient in not only not dying but training to kill people.
Yep.
What do you what do you
Absolutely.
think? Like, where do you think? How much do you think that drops off when you go from that high stress, high op tempo life from SF, and now you're into warrant officer candidate school? Can you just what's the difference like in the atmosphere that you're starting to feel at this point?
Man, that's a good question. So I think I didn't really think about that too much, just because I still had these like I was still in training, so I still had these like objectives, right? So I didn't really get to sit back and like look at it from that lens. And another thing is once I got into so after warrant officer candidate school, you start flight school. And once I got into there were other like dudes that I found that were like minded, like me, right? Like either coming from just a regular infantry unit who were like, screw this, I'm going to go to flight school because they knew they could, or the guy from the 160th that I talked about. So there were, and then there was like a Marine recon guy that I got pretty tight with. So there were enough people that I was able to surround myself with like-minded dudes. So I didn't really associate with the other people as much. Does that make sense?
Hmm. No, I
So
get it.
I guess I shielded myself from that
I
in a
think
way.
SF guys will, and you plop them in a different unit, and they'll bring the unit up, or they'll
Yeah.
find the other people there
Yep.
that are most like them and
Yep.
support. But that's a good leader in itself, right? Is you're trying to bring everybody else up to your level and not look down on everybody, because everybody has
Right.
different qualifications and different abilities.
Yeah.
Um, and
Absolutely.
we're just
Yep.
better at the basics, like, or we're supposed to
Right.
be. We're supposed to be the best at the basics, and we're
Yep.
supposed to be good leaders. We're supposed to be good examples, and that's like when we get out now, right? I'm so mad at myself for being a bad, you know, or wasting time or being a bad example or letting myself get too loose with discipline.
Right.
And like I feel we were this level when we were in, and we need to maintain that. We need to stay at the top, performing at the top
Yep.
as long as we
I
can.
totally get that. I think it's a personality thing, like a character thing. Just having that. So I have the same thing. Like it's a growth mindset, right? Like you're always trying to make yourself as good as you can. And then so
Yeah.
when you slack off on that, I beat myself up for it, like over the holidays, I think I gained like 10 pounds, and I was like, man, what am I doing with my life? So yeah, it's easy to fall into that, but as
Yeah.
long as you get back on the wagon.
Yeah. And had said it earlier, right? You get loose with things, and then drinking will creep in
Yeah.
there.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and especially we came from this unit, like I said, you're addicted to that high stress or that dopamine
Mm-hmm.
rush, and then
Yep.
it's gone and you can't find it again. And then you go, oh, I'll have a drink. Oh, I'll have another drink. And then that creeps in
Yeah.
there and it makes it all better. Yeah, it's interesting. So you find your people and you get into flight school. Like, what? Take us through that. What was that process like? Because I don't know
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
about it. So I'd love to hear
All right.
this.
Yeah. So you start, so after you become a warrant officer one, you start flight school. You do Dunker training. Have you seen the videos on Dunker? Yeah, put you in a helicopter, simulated helicopter, dunk you in the water, roll you over. You have to learn how to get out and do all that. That was fun for me. Like I'm not really good in the water, but that wasn't really swimming. Like that, all that is escaping, like Houdini style,
Yeah.
get out as fast as you can and then you're good. So that was fun. I enjoyed that. And then you start flight school, which is the first phase is all academics. So you're learning about airspace, aerodynamics, weather, just all these things. So people that had prior flight experience or like their private pilot's license, they had a huge advantage and they had it pretty easy during that phase. But it still was an Army course, like it's one of those things that if you don't get like a 90% on it, like you probably weren't paying attention at all. So it wasn't that hard. It was just a matter of doing it. Then after that, you finally get in the helicopter. And the first phase is primary. So that's when you're basically learning how to hover, which is a lot harder than you'd think. Like you pick up that helicopter for the first time, and I don't know how those instructors do it, man, because you're all over the place, and somehow they just bring you right back to center. But yeah, that was an adventure, and that's really like the first stressful moment is like they call it finding that hover button because once you
Hmm.
can hover, you got it. It's like riding a bike. Like once you get up on those two wheels and you're not wobbly anymore, worried about falling over, like you can hover consistently. So
How
that
was
was the
that?
first part.
Was that pretty exciting? The first time you pull a helicopter off the ground. What were you
Yeah,
thinking at this point?
I was thinking like, oh shit, don't make a fool out of yourself. You know what I mean? Because I felt good because I had the instructor safety net, right? So I wasn't like scared of like crashing or anything bad happening. I was more scared of just screwing it up and like looking like or being the last one to be able to hover. So I was definitely wasn't the first one, but I was good enough that I didn't feel like I was behind already or I was struggling or anything. Um, but yeah, scary, dude. Like scary in terms of like you're picking up a pretty significant machine, and you don't really know how it's going to react. Like you do, I don't even think you do. I might be wrong. You might do simulator time before, but I don't remember if you do. Um, but yeah, that's the biggest thing, just fear of the unknown. Um, and then yeah, so that phase is a couple months, and you're basically learning the basics of flying, right? Like you're learning how to talk on the radio, how to do traffic patterns and land back to an airfield, take off, and then emergency procedures. So what happens if you lose an engine? All these different things. Um, the hardest part about that phase, though, is not really the flying. It's really all the freaking things that you have to know. Like you have to memorize all the limitations of the aircraft, all the emergency procedures word for word. So you're basically memorizing like 2 chapters of a TM. That's
Hmm.
essentially what it ends up being. So it's a lot of rote memorization. And then yeah, that's that phase though. So and then you move on to your instruments phase, which is when you're learning to fly in the clouds with no visual references. And that's all. Some of it's you start in the simulator and then you actually go do it in real life. It's pretty low drama, to be honest. It's just a matter of doing it and getting familiar with the flight controls
It
and instruments.
always amazes me when uh, I talk with guys, or especially at our level, right? We just minimize shit that's
We do. I
ridiculous, like
know.
absolutely ridiculous to a
Dude,
normal
that's so
person.
true.
Because you
So
just go,
true.
yeah, we just, I've the airplane or the helicopter, and then hovered, and then la di da di da, just flew through some
Yeah.
clouds, and then we got nods, and all of a sudden, and then I'm picking
Yeah.
people up in 160th. Like,
That's
what?
so funny, man. You're right.
Right,
Because you could get any other aviator on here who like didn't have the same experiences as me before or after. And you're right. Like it would be a much more like they'd probably remember it a lot more detailed too, right? Because that wasn't even the most significant part of my career or training by far. Like that was just
right.
I got to get through this. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, it
Good
is.
point.
Even for myself, because I'll look back at stuff I did and go, whatever. And that's why I'm not good at telling like the stories about what we did and stuff. Because
Yeah.
even when I'd finish it and go, that was easy. All right,
Right.
on to the next thing.
Right.
Like, how was selection? Oh, it was a speed bump, or it was, it was this,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
phase sucked more, things like that. So it is
Or
interesting.
it
Military
is.
folk will minimize something to the point where it sounds like you're just going to the store to pick up milk.
I know. I know. When really you're flying a multi-million dollar helicopter for the first
Yeah,
time, right? Yeah,
and
it's a
that
good
and
point.
then it gets back to what I said earlier, like that. Now we've conditioned ourselves to not even think about death at this point,
Yeah.
where you're taking. How fast is that blade spinning?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. That's a good question. I have
We'll
no
put it at
idea.
super. We'll put it at super
Yeah,
fast.
super
It's
fast, super
spinning
fast.
super
It'll
fast, and
cut your
it's
head off.
what
We'll say that.
it's going 3 feet from your head, right
Yeah,
above your head,
yeah.
and then anything goes wrong, and then like helicopter crashes are pretty rough.
Oh, you're
So
done if you lose like hydraulics or something.
yeah,
You got no shot.
so
Like
and now you're completely conditioned at this point, especially at the previous experiences and the things you've done in your career, to where you go, fuck it,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Eh.
yeah. That's a good point, man. That's so interesting. Um, And then, oh, I did forgot to mention. So one thing, when I was in group, I we didn't get a lot of helicopter time, but I did fly in Blackhawks a couple times and like some CH-47s, like the Marine big buses. But I would get airsick every time in the back, so I was like scared shitless when I first got to flight school. Like I was like, "Am I not going to be able to fly a helicopter because I'm going to get sick?" But fortunately, it's totally different when you're up front. It's like driving a car,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
when
good.
you're,
That's not
yeah,
a good look as the guys in the back are looking
I know.
up and the pilot's throwing up in his helmet.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, so
I don't know if
I
this
was
guy knows what
really
he's
nervous about
doing.
that. Hmm.
Um, so,
Yeah, for real.
so obviously we minimize this until the end.
Yep.
So you pass flight school. Was there any
Yeah.
point at flight school where you like, I don't have this, or was it all just kind of you're in that mindset of, I've done harder shit than this. It's just another speed bump to get where I want to go.
No, flight school it's an army school, so it's meant for you to pass. You really have to like do something or try to not pass. To be honest, once you get there, it's meant for you to pass. But another curveball. How long is this going to go? By the way, how long do you have? Because I can talk all
I'm
day.
I'm good, man. Yeah.
All
Let's
right,
show
sweet. So
whatever
let's
you
get
want to
into
talk
this.
about.
Let's get
Yeah.
into this then, because this is when my life got real.
Okay.
So in flight school, my wife's still active duty, right? And my wife eventually got to Fort Rucker. So I think she did a year at Benning and then got to Fort Rucker. So we were together. But
What year are
we
we
had my
now?
daughter. We're fast forwarding to 2016. So my daughter was born in May 2016, and so of course, like the good soldier I am, I didn't take paternity leave because I didn't want to get recycled in flight school and extend my time at Fort Rucker. So driving on, daughter's born the next day. I'm back on the flight line doing my thing and basically said good luck to my wife, high fived her, right? And 6 months ish later, I was sitting in flight school in class one day, and I just got this overwhelming, dark, suicidal ideation, man. And it came out of nowhere. I had no explanation for it, and it scared the crap out of me. And um, that really like started and did not go away. Like it was something that I just stuffed down and dealt with for a long time. And we don't need to get into the full like story of it because it's really long. And but uh, yeah, man, I was basically suicidal for the rest of the time of flight school easily, and just trying to fix it on my own, right? Just trying to do all these things that you Google like what's how to cure depression, right? And get more sunlight, work out, eat better, sleep well, meditate, read. I was trying everything. Nothing was working. It was just this constant like thought loop, thought cycles, I guess, that
Yeah.
the more I gave the thoughts attention, the worse it got and the deeper the roots got. Um, so yeah, I just stuffed it down. At one point I did go talk to the chaplain on Fort Rucker because I was so
Ooh.
scared of something happening. I know,
Ooh.
but I was
No, I
desperate,
don't say
man.
ooh as in don't do that. I say that, as
Right.
well as
It
I
was,
do.
it was a
That's a
scary,
that can be a
yeah,
dangerous,
very,
dangerous
very,
partaking.
very, very scary thing to do. But I was at the point where I was like, man, if I go home, like something might happen and I never wanted it to, right? Like I always knew it wasn't my thoughts, it was just happening. So yeah, I went to the chaplain, and you know what happens? He had to take me to behavioral health.
Yeah.
And I did the like suicide questionnaire for them, right? And they took me back, talked to me, read the questionnaire, read my answers, and basically their synopsis was, since you don't have plans to do it, and you haven't actively like made arrangements to do it, you're good. Continue training. And that was it, man. No, like, hey, you should probably follow up with us in a week, and let's make sure this doesn't get worse. It was just like, sayonara, good luck. So in my head, like, yes, I dodged a bullet by not getting, grounded from flight school, because that was
Yeah.
obviously really scary. But at the same time, I was like, F you guys. Like, I just came for crying for help and I didn't get anything. So
Yeah.
it was a weird thing.
The I it's really tough to make other people understand that. I know exactly what you're talking about, right?
Right. Right.
And when you go to somebody in the military for help and they blow you off, you will never go for help
No,
ever
why would
again.
you? Yeah, why would you?
Ever.
It took so much courage to go do that,
Yeah.
right? And not even
Um,
courage, more just like fear of what was going to happen to me if I didn't, right? Like, so I guess courage, but I don't know.
and then
Yeah.
they go, well, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
And really, you know, nothing against the person.
No,
The
same.
military doesn't give a fuck about you. As
Right.
much as they say they do, or as much as they have programs or policies in place to care about you, the individual, they don't. They care about that you get your job done and that you're there for duty.
Yep. Of
They don't want you to kill yourself,
course.
but if you do, they'll fill your spot
Yeah.
immediately, and they'll have some training for the people that didn't off themselves and make them feel bad that you are taking time out of their day. It's like this build negative
Yeah. Yeah, for
cycle,
sure. For
and it's
sure.
really it's really like a toxic environment, right?
It is.
Um,
It is.
and dudes do end up offing themselves, and it's really sad. And I get it. I know.
Yeah.
When you said this overwhelming feeling comes over me, and I describe it as it's a really slow feeling, a dissension, right? A slow
Yep.
downhill, and it gets to the point where guys are just. You ever just say, "I'm tired. I'm
Yeah,
tired."
man. Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're
just one
numb.
day you're like, I'm I'm really tired. And that's it.
Yep.
You didn't feel it in this whole time you were getting worse. And all of a sudden, all that tough guy or all that resilience or everything is just kind of gone and you're just tired. And guys will
Yeah.
check out at that point, and it's really sad. I mean,
It is. It
like
is.
my one of my best friends 18 months ago. So,
Jeez, man.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I get it. It's terrible, and that sucks, right? So
Yeah.
you went to them, and they're like, return to duty, which
Yep.
is that's
Yep.
surprising, but it's also not surprising, right?
Right.
For
Right.
everything I know about the army and how backwards things can be, but
Yeah.
God, that's so.
Yeah.
So
It
you
was
get to this
frustrating.
point, and now you have a choice to make. You kind of gotta say, I'm not going to get help from these people ever.
Yep.
I'm going to have to figure this out on my own. What did you do to get yourself through and back and in the right headspace, or did you just push it more off the cliff?
Pushed it more off the cliff, man. I
Yeah.
so I went home that day. I don't know if it's the same day, but in the same time frame, told my wife to take my pistol apart and hide the different components, just because I didn't want that to be an option, right? Um, and yeah, it just continued. It was just, but at this point, for me, it was just ranger up, drive on, and just pray it gets better. But it never did. I tried all the meditation techniques, all the breathing techniques, tried self help books, tried journaling. I tried all the things on the list that if you Google, how to treat depression, that's what you would do, right? And none of them were working, man. I was so deep in it because of those cycles, right? Like when I would try to fix it, I was focusing on the problem and reinforcing the problem or the thoughts, whatever. So it was this, I just couldn't get out of it. And that continued like that. So we'll get to it as we move through the story, but that continued all the way until I ended up getting med boarded
And that's
from the
in
Army.
23 or 22.
That was in 23. Yeah.
So that's
So 2016 to 23.
years. Do
Yep.
you
And
think
it
if they,
wasn't, yeah, go ahead.
do you think if at that moment you were just plucked out of where you were and dropped back on an ODA, it would have fixed it?
I wonder that. I really do. And I don't know. I don't know if I was already in too deep. But I know for a fact that that was a factor of it because I did have like buyer's remorse of going to flight school just because of all the stupid regular Army trade crap that I was,
Mhm.
dealing with and stuff. So I definitely had the like, oh shit, what did I do? You know, mindset. But it was also a lot of other factors, right? We had a newborn. I was driving up through flight school, trying to succeed. My wife's still active duty, so we just had a lot of compounding stressors that I never really had to think about in my life before. So when stressors came up, I just dealt with them, and I never, I never had the foresight to be like, shoot, this is going down a bad path. But then it did.
Yeah.
So
And we,
yeah,
and we, like from earlier, if you look at your team sergeants on the team, right? Guys that, and like I said, not every case is
right,
different, but in the majority of cases, guys will, in lieu of dealing with their problems,
yeah,
i.e., their family or their personal life or problems, they will just eliminate that from their life
yes,
to
exactly,
continue and go this direction. Um,
yes,
and once you choose not to eliminate that from your life and then go a different path, so you've got all this other stress and then coping mechanisms and ways of dealing with stuff. And then the Army is just stressful in itself because it's really
yeah,
easy. Right place, right time, right uniform, ready to go, and you'll be fine. But
yeah. We put it on
it's
ourselves.
it's
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah,
We minimize all the stuff we did, but when you're in day to day and you're going through these tasks, and it's just weird. It's just hard to explain to people
it
that
is.
it's I don't know. It's just stressful. It's just this weird
Yeah,
thing, and I don't know. But then, do you want people to relate, or and in your mind
true.
you think nobody can relate, but
Yeah,
in reality, everybody in the Army can, but
absolutely.
nobody talks to one
Yeah,
another.
right.
Nobody does
About
any of
that
that
stuff, right?
about
Yeah,
that stuff. No, you
we
don't want
just
to get on
BS.
some
Yeah,
list, or you don't want
yeah,
to get shunned or things like that. So you just,
right.
dark humor your way out of things. So
Yep,
it's a
exactly.
rough existence. You think nobody's going through the same things, but in fact, everybody is going
Yes,
through it as well.
dude, you just nailed it, man. Like it took me all those years, right? And finally, like going on a podcast and talking about it and having the balls to like send it to my buddies, who I was in with. And you'd be shocked at how many of them were like, yeah, dude, I get it. I've been there too. You know,
Hmm.
in my mind, I was literally the only one that had ever dealt with something like this. And I was going insane. That was my thought. Like, I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm going absolutely insane. But in reality, there was nothing wrong with me. It was just nobody talks about it,
Yeah,
and it's not okay to talk about.
nobody talk. Why do you think it is? Yeah, it is because on a team. I talked to last week to my buddy Aaron, and in the team room, it's not well accepted, right? Because you are speaking from the bro side of your brain all the time.
Right,
And
right,
nobody's going to bring up their feelings because they'll just be called gay. Not that there's anything
right.
wrong with being gay. That's just what you're going to get called.
Yeah,
So it's not going to be received well because there's this, you know, bro attitude in there.
yep,
And these guys are going through the same problems that you're going through, and nobody's fucking talking about it.
exactly. Yeah,
And now you've taken yourself out of the team environment, which is its own blanket, even though it's not
yep,
very comforting. It is good to have that invincible team around you. And now
yeah,
you've thrown yourself out into regular army land, which is, you know, I don't know, can be stupid,
yeah, yeah. A
especially.
lot of
So
stupid stuff.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
stupid stuff.
for
So
sure.
I get you.
Yeah.
I that's tough. And then dealing with the things. So how did you? I mean, obviously you had I don't want to say you were able to pull yourself together, but you were able to
No.
make it work for 7 years. So you obviously
Yeah.
graduated flight school and you got your dot, right, which is your warrant officer one.
Yep. Yep.
And
So
you're feeling this way at this time. At what point during the warrant officer course, or is it flight school, did you find out you're going to 160th?
So I didn't go straight to 160th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to do regular Army time first. You can apply to the 160th straight out of flight school, but the guys that did that I was going through, the 160th told them, hey, like you can come back once you go get this amount of flight hours in the regular unit. So by that point, I was like, all right, like I don't even. There's no point of applying right now. I'll just go get my time and then do it.
So for everybody
Yeah.
listening that doesn't understand, can you explain what the 160th is?
Yeah, so the 160th is the Special Army Special Operations Aviation Regiment. So they are the premier aviation unit, in my opinion, in the military. They I mean, they do all the. If you've seen Black Hawk Down, that's the 160th, right? That's their helicopters. So we were the ultimate professional aviation organization. Is probably the best way I could put it. They just, yeah, they
And
fly
so
the
what?
sexy guys to the X.
Yeah, what units?
And
What units would you
yeah,
primarily work with in 160th?
so you work with the tier one guys. That's our primary customers, the tier one guys, and then we still work with like we call it whites off, like the SF guys, the Marine Recon or Raiders now, I guess, SEALs, stuff like that as well. We did a little work with some Air Force guys, but not too much. Most of the Air Force work that we do is with AFSOC, their actual like Ospreys or helicopters or whatever they fly. So yeah, most of the tier one guys though is who we supported.
The baddest of the bad. So, but
Baddest of the
before
bad, man.
before we get there, you had to go
Yeah,
to a conventional
yeah,
army. Um,
yeah. So
how was
so at
that?
first, so I graduate flight school as the distinguished honor graduate in my class, despite going through all this crap, man. Humble brag there, but that just shows like because kind of one of my like takeaways from this and my messaging from this is, and I don't know how your experience with your buddy was, but I lost a good buddy, to suicide about a year ago, and nobody knew he was that poster boy stud. Um, Great family, great kids. Nobody would have ever guessed, right? And I guess the takeaway, the reason I put the distinguished honor graduate thing in there is because I was that dude, right? If that would have been me, which got very close to it, but if I had pulled the trigger, I would have been that dude. You know what I mean? So that's a little plug on the messaging, but like that's so important, man. Is like you could think everything's fine with the dude and he's crushing it in life, but he might not. You know what I mean? He might just be
Hmm.
hiding it. So yeah,
He is hiding it,
right.
even
He
if he's
is.
crushing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like we have this perception that social media is somebody's real life, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
like I have my Instagram, but all you see is like my good parts of my workout and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's
And I'm
marketing, right? Like,
yeah, I'm trying to get people and
yeah,
show them what I'm working with, but then I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I should really be doing the motivational stuff like I want to do. And saying, but okay, well, let's work
yeah,
into it. Let's get some followers in this. But people have this perception that if everybody's fine on social media, or everybody's fine when you see them out, that they're fine, and they're generally
right.
not. We're all
Yeah,
growing up together, and yeah, that
exactly.
that bums me out, man. It really does. Yeah, oh, I'm the same way. I had some good performances in the military, and if things had gone differently, then that would be that way. But
Right.
unfortunately,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, it's terrible. I'm sorry to
it
hear that,
is.
man.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it is what it is.
it's too bad. Like
It's
everybody's got the story, right?
yeah,
Because they
yeah.
even got, and there's some discrepancies of 22 veterans a day or whatever, whether that
Right,
number
of
is even
course.
correct
Yeah,
or whatnot. And
right.
do some push-ups and things like that. Yes,
Yeah.
raise awareness, but God, fuck, just
Oh,
having
yeah.
taking your phone out of your pocket and calling your buddies
Yes,
is,
dude. And yes,
and
yes.
then and
And
then even the perception I'm getting from guys reaching out to me is, oh, hey, can I be on your show? Yeah, you can absolutely be on my show. What do you look for in a guest? You, like, as long as you're a special
That's
operations
awesome.
guy,
Yeah,
you
dude.
can come
That's
on. You can
awesome.
come on the show. We'll do an episode, and we'll just talk about whatever the fuck you want. Hey, you got a book, you got a way of doing things, or you got this financial thing, or whatever you got to do. We can come out and
Yeah.
talk about it and tell your story. You can't go on Rogan and like, or some of the other shows, or Sean Ryan,
Right.
unless you're
Right.
doing whatever. So
Yeah.
I just build my own thing, and I can have the guys on and support the guys,
Yeah, dude.
and we
I
can
love
talk
it.
about the shit that nobody talks about. But even this will be episode 6, right? But
Yeah.
there's a theme running through all of the episodes so far, and it's that cut of depression, and that supplementing with
Man.
alcohol, and that
Yep.
feeling that way. And everybody's gonna, so you see guys will, maybe they'll watch the show, maybe they'll watch some reels of mine, and they'll say, I can deal with that, or I can push out and do this other thing, or I can make my life this little bit better. And I talked
Yeah.
about it last episode, is guys are going through stuff, and when they do eventually kill themselves, it doesn't take all of their pain and disperse it throughout the
No.
universe. It
Right.
multiplies it all. So it takes that level, that this much of your pain, and it just hands it to each one of your friends like a spider
Yes.
web, equally. They get this
Yep.
100% of all the pain you are feeling, and it shatters everybody that you know. And I
Yeah,
just don't
man.
think that
Yeah.
guys need to like be alone or feel that way. And I get it, right? I get it.
Yeah.
That tired,
No, I do too.
and you
Yeah.
just want to check out, and you don't want
Yeah.
to deal with it anymore. And then
Yeah.
you have a drink, and then things get a little too carried away. But yeah, maybe
Right.
guys will come on a show, and we'll talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about, and nobody's going to judge you.
That's
I
awesome.
don't care. Like, you
Yeah.
want to come on and
Exactly.
just have a good
Yep.
conversation, and then you'll always have my number. And if you got a question, yeah, just email me, and I'll see, or text me, and I can find the answer. So
Yeah.
creating an
That's awesome.
environment for the guys or the gals, guys or gals now.
Right.
So
Yeah. 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 No. Yeah. No, that's
um,
awesome, man. I think it's needed, right? Like we do such a good job of staying together when we're in the military, and then when we get out, it's everybody disperses,
I don't
So
have
it's
anybody's
good.
number. I don't have
Yeah,
anybody's
it's good to have this stuff.
anything.
Yeah.
Before, when going through in the Army, the phones, every time you got a new phone, you lost all your contacts, or you broke
Yeah.
your phone, you lost all your contacts. It wasn't uploaded. So about the time I got out, I had nobody's contact information except the guys in at battalion, and
Yeah.
and and I don't have anybody's stuff. So now I can network again and get with people and meet everybody
Yeah.
else, and try
Heck
to
yeah.
make whatever difference that I can,
Right.
or help people.
Yeah, man.
I'll do
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
to support any of the guys. So
Right. Or even like in the business example, right? Like if somebody comes on here and they're starting a business or whatever, doing this for Green Berets, like you're not going to know about it unless, they come on and talk about it and people listen. So it's cool
yeah,
in that aspect too.
I
Just
got a little thing here, but it goes up on the internet, right? It goes on the
yeah,
internet, and then that
exactly.
person who's got their book, right? They
Yep.
can take that and they can send it to all their friends, or they can post it on
Yes.
Facebook and say, "Hey, here's my thing I've got going on, or here's my project that I'm working on," and it's always going to be there, like, for them to
Yeah.
look back on. And some other show, some big show with a big following, might see it and go, "Ah, we got to have this guy on."
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I love it, dude. That's awesome. And it's going to grow. You know what I mean? Just it will. Just one of
yeah,
those things.
as long
Yeah.
as I don't
But
turn into a douchebag.
exactly. That's the
Yeah,
biggest thing, dude. Like, yeah, as long as you're down to earth and, yeah, it's
yeah.
going to
I
grow.
just don't want
Like
to,
people,
don't want to be full of shit. Yeah,
yeah, people like
trying to be
hearing people
genuine.
talk about real stuff. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So back to real stuff. So you
All
went
right.
to back to real stuff.
Yeah.
You like my transition material?
Yeah, it's great.
Um, what regular Army unit did you go to?
Yeah. So I was fortunate that I got to go to Savannah, Georgia. So I went to third Combat Aviation Brigade, and I chose that not only because Savannah was cool, but because that unit was deploying to Afghanistan shortly after me getting there. So as a pilot, my goal was to get to 160th, right? And to accelerate that, you have to get, so the 160th at the time wanted you to have 500 flight hours and make pilot in command, which means you've progressed to the point where you are now in charge of the aircraft. So you're the pilot in command of the aircraft. When you graduate flight school, you're not. Just a regular pilot and you have to fly with a pilot in command in order to fly. So you basically have to get to that point, and by deploying, you accelerate that timeline because you're in the helicopter almost every day, as opposed to garrison, you're in it maybe 2-3 times a week at most. So I went to Savannah, went to third cab, realized being a warrant officer 1 in an aviation unit is just like being a private. Like, you're doing all the BS details that privates do, because even though, which is weird because there's privates in the unit, but the privates are doing the maintenance on the aircraft. So they don't get tasked out to go do all the details like inventories, and, there's a goggle custodian. There's literally one of the warrant officers is the supply sergeant for the company, the entire company, like as a W1, and you still have to fly and progress. So there's a lot of like stupid stuff, but yeah, I'm still struggling with all this, and then launched to Afghanistan. And it was cool because, I was moving my career forward. So that aspect was cool. Deploying with the regular army was miserable. Like, everything was just reactive. There was no foresight with anything. So constantly just trying to put out fires for stupid stuff that I had another SF dude in my company, a former SF dude that went to flight school with and everything. So we were both in Afghanistan together, just like, dude, what are we doing, basically? So yeah, it was super, super cool that he was there, but we were both just like, this is so bad. So in Afghanistan, I was still going through this depression and everything. And I was in a bad spot, man. Like, I was super just scared of my own thoughts and like confused at why this was continuing to happen. But one night we had a night flight, and it was like we came over a mountaintop pretty high up, and we had to make a rapid descent. So you do the, plug your nose and pop your ears type thing, Valsalva. And I did it, and I got this head over heels vertigo. Like, my head felt like it spun around 2 times, and I was super disoriented. And long story short, we came back and landed later that night because it went away after like 20 seconds. But came back and landed, went to midnight chow, and I was walking to chow, and dude, I just fell over. Like, same thing happened. I had this vertigo spell and just could not control my legs. My legs went wobbly, and I just fell over in the gravel. Played it off, like I tripped, whatever. But after that, I went and saw a flight surgeon or whatever, a doc, and told me I ruptured my eardrum and to follow up the next day with my flight surgeon. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. Ruptured my eardrum, that lost my balance. So I go talk to the flight doc the next day, though, and he's like, dude, your ears are fine. You have no ruptured eardrum. Like, I don't know what they saw, but your ears are fine. So
He's probably drinking.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, he checked again because I told him that. And so whatever, I go on. But those dizzy spells never stopped. So I was continuing to have those dizzy spells, but I didn't speak up about them. It never happened in the aircraft when I was flying. So I don't know, man. I was just having these crazy dizzy spells, still dealing with this depression and everything. And then fast forward a little bit, the deployment was pretty, got a lot of flight time, but it wasn't very like exciting. Like, I think we got shot at by like RPGs, but nothing like,
just
oh my gosh, that
casual,
almost hit us. Yeah.
Casual RPG, not your everyday one, just a normal one.
I'll just tell you this: it wasn't cab worthy according to my command. So it wasn't close enough to kill us, so we can't get a cab for it. That was their mentality. It's like, all right, dude, that makes a lot of sense. Because I was trying to hook my guys up. I'm like,
right.
We saw it on the instruments, like we got the warning, like missile. The crew chief saw the smoke trail of it, so we weren't. You know what I mean?
It's a true regular Army commander thing.
Oh man,
get repeated.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly, none of your guys died, so
yeah, right.
I'm going to deny this.
We're not going to do the paperwork for this.
Also, I'm going to downgrade all of your awards to certificates of achievement.
Yeah, for real.
Also, you have you have duty tonight. So,
Right.
so
Yeah, dude. I know. Like, it was so annoying because, like, it made me feel like I was a liar. You know what I mean? Like, when they were like, oh, yeah, doesn't meet the criteria. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
that
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 makes no
remind
sense.
my I got medically retired, so my retirement
Yeah.
award or whatever ETS award, whatever you call it, was a meritorious service medal, right?
Yeah.
And I get out, and then in the mail, 6 weeks after maybe 6, 8 weeks after I'm back here, I open the mail, and there's a fucking RCOM in there, Army
Oh,
Commendation Medal.
my
And I
gosh.
go,
No.
and I look at it, okay, RCOM 6th Award. And I just throw it in the trash.
Oh, my
And then I get on the phone
gosh.
and I call back to the battalion. I go, hey, I just got my retirement award. It was supposed to be an MSM. It got downgraded. Anybody tell me why? And they said, well, because you're not an E7. I said, well, that's not in the regulation. I just want to let you know I am an E7. And then he goes, well, that sucks. And he hung up.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I said, okay, well, now come to find out in the civilian world, nobody gives a shit. It was
Yeah,
just
it
going to
doesn't
look
matter at
good
all.
on my
But yeah.
dress uniform
Yep.
for like when I go to Memorial Day and stuff like that and wear my uniform.
Right.
But also nobody cares because I don't
No,
care
nobody
anymore. Like
cares.
I don't
But
care. I
yeah.
cared then, but I
Right.
don't care now. Like I'll put my uniform on and be like, oh, I don't, all I got's this. Like other
Yeah.
guys got all kinds of shit, and I just go, oh, that's cool. They had different
Yeah.
opportunities than I had. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the regular armies. One thing,
That was
things are
dumb.
different. Things are different.
Yeah,
It's a
things are
different
definitely.
mentality. It's a different uh, you know level of care for the people that you're in charge of. Like you're
Yes.
protecting something. Like there's a
Right,
gatekeeping of
right,
something.
right.
When in the end, it just goes, hey, sir, it'll up morale.
Yeah.
The guys will
Up
really
morale. It'll let our guys
appreciate
get
this
promotion
because
points.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you know this. We're in fucking Afghanistan.
Yeah,
And it
dude.
would really, guys would really appreciate it. Instead, they go,
Yeah.
yeah, this really doesn't meet the made up criteria that's not in this book. We
Right.
can't give it to them.
Yeah,
So
dude. It was dumb. It was
anyway,
frustrating.
long story
But yeah,
short, fuck him.
that yeah, yeah. That is a tangent. But so I make pilot in command Afghanistan and get my 500 hours. So drop my 160th packet while I'm still deployed, about 3/4 of the way with my deployment. And then the month, I think it's the month before we got back, I got a email inviting me to come assess. So I got back in June 2018 and was assessing in August 2018. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. Came home, kissed the wife and so made sure my daughter actually knew who I was, and then went and assessed.
I'm your father. All right, I gotta go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'll see you in a couple months. Good luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cool thing though is my assessment timing was like perfect because I was just off this 9-month deployment, so I was hitting the gym, twice a day, and I was really competent in the aircraft because I had just gotten a crap load of flight hours consistently, which was huge. So I go assess, still dealing with all this crap though, all this mental crap, but just stuffing it down. And assessment, man, it's tough. Like it's a mental assessment more than physical, right? Like it's just, but it's all individual, which is kind of cool. So I'll just run you through like the overview of it
Yeah, I'd love
real
to hear
quick
it.
because it's yeah, it's not commonly known, and it's also obviously I can't talk about some things, but the general scheme of it. So day one, you show up, you do your PT test the first day,
Just regular Army PT
and
test.
it's a regular Army one, but I think I think they screw with it a little bit, man, because I was running for a long time. It did not feel like 2 miles. But you do you do that, and then at the end you do pull ups. So that's an added thing. So it's basically just go until you can't. And I cheated the system. I was like, "Can I kip?" And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I did I think like 35 kipping pull ups, because I was like, "All right, sweet." So, but I asked them and they were like, yeah, as long as you get your chin over the bar. So I did that. Um, then after that, you do yeah, I know, right? It's like these people are struggling to do 8. I'm like, dude, if I can kip, I can go all day.
Yeah.
Um, so, And then you go into like psych tests. It's long. It's like 4 hours of psych testing, just filling out scantrons, doing all that. And then the next day, for me was the swim test, and that kicked my ass. Like
What is it?
that
500
was
meters?
it's so you swim. I'm gonna butcher this. Swim down and back the pool, different strokes. And this is all in full flight gear too. So it's like the helmet and everything. So it's kind of awkward. Yeah. Um, and then you tread water for, I don't know the time, 3 minutes maybe with only your legs, and then 3 minutes only your arms, or maybe arms first. I don't know. And then you do a dead man's float for a couple minutes where, you can come up for one breath of air at a time, and that's it. And then you have to do an underwater portion down the pool. And that's the part that kicked my ass. Like after doing all that, I did the underwater. You have to make it to the end of the pool, and then they tap your helmet to let you know you're done. So theoretically, you're supposed to make it to the end and turn around and go as far as you can, right? But in my mind, I had seen other people like just touch the pool and then get tapped on the head. So I was like, all right, you just got to make it down. So I make it down, touch the end of the pool. I'm like about to, pass out. And I come up, and they didn't tap my helmet. So they were like, you're a no-go. And I was like, shit. I was like, Roger, can I go again? And he's like, yeah, get the back of the line. And it was not a line anymore. It was like 3 people. So I'm like right back in it, already out of breath. Yeah.
Out through the mouth.
Exactly. So the second time I made it maybe 2/3 of the way down the pool, man. So I was like, shit, this is my assessment right here. It's over. Cause I asked him, I was like, can I go again? And he's like, no, get out of my pool. You're done. And I was like, well, there it is. There's my whole week in day 2. But fortunately, like nothing really came of that. I was just kind of waiting for it, and nothing came of it. It got brought up later, but it wasn't really a go, no go thing. It was more to test you, see your character, right? And obviously if you couldn't do anything in the swim test, then that probably would be a no-go. But
did they make you swim at SFAS?
Yeah, I do remember that, or at some point in the Q course.
It just popped in my head.
Remember that.
I think after selection they made us just swim down in the pool. It was really weird.
I remember that too, but I can't remember what phase it was, because that wasn't like, at selection, was it?
I think we had it at after selection. It wasn't even a go no go. It was as if somebody had thought of it on the bus back from Camp McCall, and they went, "Hey, let's these guys stink. Let's go put them in the pool, and they can swim to the end, and then we'll get them all back on the bus, and then we can go back to Bragg and get rid of them."
Yeah, dude, I remember that too. I do remember doing a swim test at some point, but I can't like picture when it was. That's so weird. Yeah. Even that one, like same thing, man. I am not a good swimmer. Like I can get by, but like if I go in the ocean, I'm not going to die, right? Like I can swim, but like swimming tests like that's when it's like, but, so anyways, the next part of assessment, you sit down with your assessment pilot. So you have a pilot who's assigned to you, who's assessing you, who's obviously in the unit. And he sits down, and you kind of just get the lay of the land, and he gives you your mission for the week, gives you the instructions. And you do some other aviation tests, which are everything in assessment is designed for you to fail and see how you react. So I think I got like
Kobayashi Maru, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think I got like a 30% on one of the knowledge exams that you're supposed to know all the information, right? Like as a pilot already, but it's meant to be that way. So I get my mission, and how it works is you can't use any like electronic planning things, which you do in the regular Army, right? Like you use computers to plan your routes and all this stuff, and to get your like specifications for the aircraft, like how much it's going to weigh and your power requirements, things like that. So all of that is usually done electronic, but when you go to the assessment, you have to do everything by hand, including you have a paper map that you have to draw your route on. And
they're just doing the same thing that they did to us in like Nightline Nav. or they did to us in
Exactly.
calc in place in the Q course. They were
Exactly.
like, hey, you
Yep.
don't get a calculator, and hey, if you make any mistakes, we're going to kick you out and send you to the 82nd.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's
So you,
everybody. Yeah, they just want to see how, hey, you got to do the basics. We're back to the
right.
basics, right? If you
Right.
don't have
Exactly.
anything to fall back on, it's
Yep.
time to succeed here. But you get all the cool guy shit when you get to the unit.
That's a great way to summarize it. But yeah, so you get your mission. You have to hit this target that's a certain distance away, plus or minus 30 seconds, without any electronical navigation. Just literally judging the winds and hoping you stay on course so you didn't land nav in the air. Somehow I found my target. I was not on time, but I found my target somehow because, dude, if you, like land navigation when you're going 110 knots in the air is totally different than on the ground. Like you're just like praying the landmarks you picked work out. But yeah, I learned a lot of good things in that. I definitely wasn't competent. I will attribute some of it to luck for sure. But I hit my target. And then
This is in an aircraft.
yeah, so this yep, so
Yeah.
you're flying in the MH60, so the 160th is Blackhawk. Or at least I did. Some people do it in Little Birds and stuff, but mine was in the Blackhawk. And then yeah, he let me take the controls and do the landing and stuff just to see how I do and stuff. So that was good. And then I had to plan another mission because assessment is weird where you show up Sunday and the end of it is a board, a formal board in front of the regiment command and a lot of the bigwigs in regiment. And some people's board is literally on Tuesday, so they're there from Sunday to Tuesday. Most of the aviators are Wednesday through Friday, but my board was the last one on Friday, so I got stuck with the long assessment, which means the guys that boarded on Wednesday, they did one mission, they were done, but I had to go plan and do this all thing for another one. And you get like 30 minutes of sleep, like here and there, maybe. But so that's really what it's about. It's about sleep depriving you, seeing how you can perform with this basically unknown, type of tactics and flying that you can do. And then the board at the end, that's just them pointing out everything you did wrong in the week and seeing, what type of person you are when you get called out on all your shit, basically. And from what I've heard is they already know if you passed or failed going into the board the majority of the time, right? Unless you screw up the board big time. So what I've been told, and this might not be true, but is if you have a rough board, that likely means you passed. So let's just put it that way, that I had a rough board.
I've heard that for other
Yeah.
units as well. So
Yeah, man.
you got this process. Have you ever given any thought to why they put you through that? Why do you
Which
think
part?
that
The
the whole thing,
board or the
the assessment like that?
Oh,
Because they know
yeah, for
they know
sure.
you can fly, and
Yeah.
when you get to a certain level, you can look at somebody's
Yep.
record and things and go, yeah, this is probably, but you don't know who the person is. So why do they
Yes.
put you through this assessment?
You know what it really comes down to, man, and this is a very, very simplified way of putting it, but if that dude that's sitting at that board at the end of the week, if the assessment pilot and the people that he's told about what happened that week look at that dude and say, yeah, I could sit and have a beer with that guy, right? And enjoy it. Like that is one of the primary, I know that's a very simplified way of saying it, but it's an analogy, right? Like what type of dude is that guy, because it really does expose your character. It exposes your character like when you fail, because you do fail during the week. Like I didn't hit my target on time, right? I was lucky to hit my target at all. But a lot of people just get lost flying around, until they're out of gas and they never find their target. So how does that dude react in that moment? Because that is a reflection of how he's going to react, when shit hits the fan in combat or whatever in a high stakes mission. So I really think that's what it's meant to do, is expose your weaknesses and see how you react when they're exposed, right? And when your back's against the wall.
Yeah, because shit's gonna go fucking
Yeah.
bad whether you
Oh
do
yeah.
everything. You can do everything right,
Yeah.
and it's still
It's
gonna go
dynamic.
bad. And that's
Yeah, it's
with life
dynamic.
or the army, especially in the army.
Yep.
You could do everything right all the time and have it have things go wrong 50% of the time.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
it's in land now. That's why they put us through all this shit, and they make us jump through all these
Exactly.
hoops, play these stupid games, and especially though. And you said like 160th works with tier run guys. Your customers, so you guys are the top tier transportation unit, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We're the
your
Uber
customers
drivers.
are the top tier, uh,
Yep.
like above Green Berets, everything above Green Berets.
Yeah.
And then they have those, like Delta Force has sister units that are
Yep.
even more exclusive. And you guys are flying those people around. And those people have no tolerance for bullshit.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
they're like,
Yep.
they are going out to do bad things to bad people, and they don't need to worry about the guy driving the truck. So they need
Exactly.
somebody on their
Exactly.
level. Um,
Yep.
So I get
Yep.
that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, once you said that earlier, you're like, yeah, they're not. They're the least. They're less regular army than the Rangers and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess I can see that because
Yeah.
you're dealing with people. Because when in the shows people say, I tell you, I have to kill you.
Right.
Well, the
Right.
people that are really in those units, you would never know that they were in
Yeah.
those
Oh, that's so
units.
true, man. That is
You
so
would
true.
never know that they're, and those are the people that you're working with. They're
Yep.
just normal looking guys or gals, and they're fucking
Yep.
killers, and they're the
They're
best in the
killers,
world
dude.
at it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's interesting. So,
Yeah.
what was your experience?
Yeah.
So you go through your board. Did you have
Yep.
like you said, did you have a bad board or a good board?
I had a bad board, man. One thing that stood out from the board. So you've heard, my mental health stuff, right? One of the senior warrant officers was CW5. Um, I know he's a great dude. Like I didn't know him then, right? But now I know him since I was in the unit for a while. He looked me in the eyes and he said, he was reading my resume. He's like, Nick, like Green Beret, distinguished honor graduate, right? Like naming off all these things. And he's like, so you're a high performer. What happens when you can't keep pushing like this your entire life, right? And man, that hit me because I was already there. Like I was already at like, driving 150 miles an hour and trying to just escape my thoughts, by performing. So it's just ironic that he brought that up at the
Because
time while I was
he knew he
actually
knew
going through that.
because
It
he
might
knew.
have, man. I don't know. Or he knew it was coming, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe he had gone through that.
Oh,
So
he absolutely went
yeah,
through it. Like
yeah,
CW5's been in the army for 30 years.
right, exactly.
So he's
So
seen
isn't that ironic though?
everybody
Because
10 times.
yeah, and at the time, man, I was like, shit, this guy sees through me. You know what I mean? Like, is this a psych no go type thing? But yeah, so the board went good. And after the board's done, you go in this little waiting room while they, basically
Deliberate.
probably say, yeah, he's good, or let's
They
F with
talk
him,
about
right?
they talk about their
Yeah,
or their fantasy football picks. They
yeah,
don't talk
exactly,
about the board. They
exactly.
don't give a shit about
Yeah,
you.
yep. So they leave you out there, and then one of the whatever guys comes and gets you, and I walk back in the assessment room, and there's a sign hanging from the president of the board's desk, written in pen, just like literally a ruled paper, right? And it says no go in big letters. That's it, just no go. And right when I saw it, I'm just like, shit, that's it, And I go, I report to the board, I sit down, and he starts doing his spiel. He's like, this has been great, or whatever he says. He's like, I hope this was a great experience for you. I want you to go back to your unit. I want you to get a little more experience, and then we'll see you back here in January to start training. And I'm like, you mother, you know what I mean? Like the roller coaster, man. So, and then everybody gets up and shakes my hand and smiling and stuff. But yeah, that's how it went. So it was
Yeah.
more all the way to the very end. I was getting
Welcome,
messed with.
welcome to the team.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so that's got to be a good feeling. How's that rank
Oh man,
with getting your you've been selected or getting your beret or where's that rank in there? Is that a similar feeling?
it was similar. Yeah, for sure. The especially because you know it was a little different because I felt like I was escaping something, right? Like it was 160th or get out of the army for me. Like I was not going to go back to my unit and stay in the Army. I was going to get out as soon as I could. So that gave it a little more weight, to make it feel like, all right, like thank God, right? The next goal post has been reached, So yeah, that was my experience with that. I called everybody right away, and yeah,
I,
it
I
was
did
good.
it. I did
Yeah, it
it.
was good. It was good.
So
And
at
then the cool
this,
thing was I went back to my unit and they didn't touch me for the next 3 months. I basically just PT'd on my own and showed up till 2 every day and went home. So it was pretty nice. Flew a couple times here and there, but yeah,
that is a good feeling. Like
it
when I got
was.
selected, I went back to my unit as a private. I'm a like low level,
Mm,
and I was not treated that way. It was like that's Ward. He passed selection.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's going off to do other things, and it's like fuck him. I just want to
Yeah.
get out of here. I just want to get out
I
of
know.
here, man.
I know, dude. I
I
know,
just want to
man.
get out of Oklahoma. Um,
Seriously.
I guess here, let's switch to current
Yeah.
events
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
you
do it.
said
Yeah.
PIC for a second, right?
Yeah.
Which hit me there because I was reading an article where it said
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Let's talk.
pilot
Yeah. Let's.
she
Yep.
was she was I thought it said person, the article was written badly. It said person in charge. You
Yeah.
said pilot in command, so that triggered that.
Yeah.
So what the fuck happened there? I, in my mind, know what happened is the Army fucking gets lazy and
Yeah.
it led to people dying. But what happened there?
Yeah. Man, there's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of bullshit on the internet of what people are saying. Like, it's way too many conspiracies, by the way. What I
Yeah.
think, and obviously I wasn't in the cockpit, so I can't like tell you definitively what happened. But from my perspective as a former Black Hawk pilot, here's what I think happened. I think the female captain was the pilot in command because she was not the senior pilot. Okay. You put your name on paper to be the pilot in command when you're trying to rack up pilot in command hours, not necessarily because you are the senior pilot, or even, yes, on paper, you're the one in charge, but she was flying with an instructor pilot. And the instructor pilot was the more experienced pilot, right? So
Would
while
that be
she
the
was on
right seat
paper,
or the left seat?
it depends. Probably the left seat in this case
Okay.
because they were doing a check ride.
So who's
So
who's actually in
so
control?
the instructor would be in the left side, in the
Okay.
left seat, more than likely. That's usually how check rides go. Is the instructor's in the left seat, the pilot's in the right seat. So what I think happened is on paper she was the pilot in command. In reality, he was doing a check ride for her. He put pilot in command for her so that she could get pilot in command hours. Okay, that's what I think. And what happened, I don't know. I don't know if they had radio issues, and lost communications. I don't know what happened on that regard because I did hear there were multiple calls to them telling them to go behind the traffic, which obviously is what they should have done. But they were unfortunately flying at night. It was a check ride. So I don't know if the instructor was giving her an emergency procedure and they were both inside the cockpit trying to diagnose it. And he was trying to help her. And just worst timing in the world, right?
Yeah.
Just coincidentally hit. That's my speculation. So I definitely don't think it was intentional. Like that, I don't
No.
know. Those
No.
crazy conspiracies out there, like they're definitely don't think it was intentional. I think it was just a matter of task saturation in the cockpit. I don't know if the female pilot was out of the cockpit for a while and this was, kind of getting her back up and she was just struggling. And the instructor was trying to, overcome her struggling and help her and do it for her. Or, I don't know. But that's
Yeah.
kind of where my mind went is they were both inside looking at something, not looking outside where somebody should always be at all times. And it just, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah,
That's kind of my 2 cents on it.
it only takes a moment, and then
Right.
you're kind of spread eagle on the side of the mountain,
Yeah,
and you're fucked.
exactly. Especially at
Um,
night because your depth perception's all jacked up too. Even
yeah,
with goggles, you're still, you see a blinking light, which is an airplane or it's a tower, right? Like if it's down here at the same level as you, like a tower looks the exact same as an airplane, right?
yeah,
So especially under goggles. So
yeah. It's on.
that's what I think happened, man. I think it was just a really unfortunate accident, and just
Yeah, accidents happen. I mean, somebody's got to be at fault. It's just too bad.
yeah,
Like, Like that shit almost happens all the time in the
Oh yeah.
military. Like
Oh, near
all the
misses
time.
are. I was a safety officer in the 160th, and it's mind blowing how many little accidents happen that, you know, a foot to the right or left would have been a fatal accident. Just
Or, like in
scary.
airborne operations where you're kicking out
Yeah.
jumpers, right? And
Yeah.
the wind shifts and guys are breaking their legs on roads and shit.
Yeah.
And that's just
Yeah.
one that happens all the time. Like there are serious incidents that almost happen or do happen all the time. And this just one that
Hmm.
happened, is recorded. And so yeah,
Right.
that's what I think it should just, eventually happens. Like training accidents,
Yeah.
like me, eventually somebody's going to get hurt. Eventually somebody's going to get killed. Eventually this and
Right.
this and that. And just, you do
Yeah.
dangerous shit enough times, every instance of outcome will happen. So,
Yeah.
eventually an
Exactly, man.
airliner is going to collide with a Black Hawk, unfortunately, as long as the
Right.
conditions are right. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
that's interesting.
Even the best of the best, man. Even, I mean, 160th, we had a huge accident a year ago where, 5 crew members died. Like, it's the nature of it. And it was just same thing. It was Oconus, but it was training. Like they were training with ground force, but still, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
training
just
one that's tough, because in training you're simulating real conditions, but
yep,
it's like fuck, we weren't
yeah,
even
it sucks.
we were
I know. It's like,
yeah.
man, yeah,
Yeah, and then you can't there's you can mitigate or you can do risk assessments all you want to try and mitigate dangers, but you can't get everything. It's unfortunate.
yeah. I mean,
People get hurt and people die. So,
it's the nature of being in a dangerous job, right? It sucks, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
so that's interesting to get your perspective on that because that popped into my head. But so anyway, so we're done with the regular army now. Now we get to go
yeah,
back to the special army. Uh,
yes.
what was that like? Was it so? Now is this another instance of you being the fucking new guy again?
So not yet, because they have a pipeline as well. So you don't
Oh,
just go there and join and go in the unit. You go to their pipeline and you have to learn how to fly as a 160th pilot. So, but on the mental health side,
yeah.
so after I got assessed, man, the suicidal stuff was gone. However, I was still having these dizzy spells. So the suicidal stuff was like it would come and go, right? It wasn't like overwhelming. It was like maybe once or twice a month, like I'd get a thought and I'd be like, shit, is it back? You know what I mean? So it
Hmm.
wasn't recurring, but the dizzy spells were there, still there. So just want to kind of keep that as a theme because that comes in later. But so 160th, they call it Green Platoon. It's at Fort Campbell.
Yeah.
So go to Fort Campbell for Green Platoon. The first portion is, well, first of all, when I first got there, I had about 3 weeks to a month till I started my class, which was phenomenal, man. I got there and it was such a breath of fresh air. I signed in process, and there's a lady that's in charge of all the like incoming pilots, and she literally said, "Hey, I'm gonna text you once a day. Other than that, I don't want to see you until you start your course." And I was like, "Yes." So I basically got like 3 weeks of free leave during that time, which was amazing, man, just to get settled. But Green Platoon, Officer Green Platoon, it's almost like they call it combat skills. It's like a mini, really condensed special operations basic training, right?
Mhm.
Like you do, but it's not to the level of anything we did. So it's special operations, yes, but it's not near anything in SFAS or the Q course. But you do some cool range work. So you do some pistol shooting with actual like steel targets and stuff. So it's actually like legit, some legit stuff. But it's not hard. It's just one of those things that nobody fails it. It's really like it's really designed to train you, right? To train
Yeah.
you on how to be in a special operations unit. Because the cool thing is every MOS goes to that. So not just the pilots, like the S1 people go to that. Every single person in the 160th goes through that. And the enlisted one is a lot more strenuous than the officer one. Like it's the same curriculum, but we get treated a lot better. So that was nice to be on that side of it for once. So after that, you do It's called BNAV, basic navigation. And this is where you learn how to land nav from the air in a little bird. So you fly around, I think it's 2 weeks, and you do 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And it's pretty intense. Like you're there probably 16 to 18 hours a day, planning and getting ready for your missions. And you end up doing, I think, 8 flights. And the first flight, everybody gets lost and doesn't know where the hell they are. But by the 8th flight, you're literally hitting checkpoints on time and hitting your target on time. So it's pretty cool to see that progression of how it happens. Learning like how to actually use the winds, right, and manage that, especially time. That was the hardest thing. Like you have a 10 knot headwind. How does this affect my time, right? So that's BNAV. That BNAV's really, it's just archaic and fast and furious, but it was cool. Honestly, it was really cool to see the progression. And then after that, you go to the whatever airframe you're flying. So if you're going to be I was going to be stay with Blackhawks, so I went to the 160th Blackhawk course, and that's when you learn all the special operations techniques of flying. So doing things the 160th way, right, which is way different from the regular Army, man. It is night and day how we operated in the 160th. So you're basically learning how to go from driving a Geo Metro to driving a souped up like Ferrari. You know what I mean? Like that's essentially what it is. And driving on a, windy road instead of driving in a straight line. That's the best like way I can frame the difference. So I'm serious. Like when I started training in the 160th pipeline, like it was amazing. First of all, you're getting trained by these legends, these 160th legends, like these dudes that have been in the part of the regiment basically since the beginning of the regiment in the 80s or 90s. And then, there are guys with 8,000, 10,000 flight hours, just, not everything's just nonchalant to them, and they're teaching you how to do it.
There's, same airframe, right? The regular Army to SOAR. There's a couple differences with the Chinook and things with refueling, but
we got the same.
Like Blackhawks are Blackhawks generally the same, but like I got my pickup out there and I can drive it really well, but Lewis Hamilton, I don't know what Lewis Hamilton can do with my truck. He could probably drive it. He could probably drive it until the wheels fall off, right?
Exactly.
So that's the difference there is the regular Army's got a real stiff framework of what they need done, and it doesn't go outside of that framework. Where in special operations, especially with the units that you guys are going to be working with, you need to be able to drive that piece of machine to its absolute limits if need be.
Yes. Exactly.
And you know how to do it. You know how to do it, casually, or somebody's going to die.
Yep. Exactly.
That's I guess that's probably your biggest jump from your regular Army to, then now there's medevac and things like that in the regular Army where you get some outside of the box, but where, guys that pilot those little birds, that's crazy because they would just drop in right on, kick guys out on top of buildings off, and we could see them like a little drone and shit like that. So
little bird pilots it's a different breed for sure.
How long was this training?
So it was only 9 months total from everything I've talked about. So I think the flying portion's like 5 or 6 months.
So what year is it now?
So this is 2020. Yes. Okay. No, this is 2019. 2019. Okay. Yeah. So 2019. So I finished that. I get orders back to 3rd Battalion, which is in Savannah. So I was going back to Savannah, which was kind of cool. Because that's actually the company that recruited me into the 160th. So I met some guys there, and they kind of, mentored me into getting to the 160th. So I went back to Savannah, dude. And this is a story that I like to tell because my first day reporting to my new company in the 160th, I'm super nervous, right? I'm the new guy. So I'm like, here we go. Let's see how this goes. I'm in uniform. I'm walking into the hangar, and there's a guy walking out, no headgear or anything, boots on blast. I'm like, all right, cool. I feel like I'm kind of back home, but he's walking out, and I can see his rank, and he's a CW4. I'm like, oh shit. The first guy I'm meeting is a W4, right? I'm a W2 at this point. So I'm not like I'm not a W1, but still, I'm
Yeah.
still not a senior guy by any means. And man, when he reads my name tape, huge smile on his face. Nick O'Kelly, we've been waiting for you, man. I'm this. And dude, I was just like, oh my God, that is the opposite of what I expected. But yeah, it was just, and like, yeah, like as a new guy, you get, it's a different level of getting shit in the 160th,
Yeah.
because it's like, it's more refining your performance, and that's when you get beat up. It's not the, hey new guy, go do this shit, you know what I mean? Like, it's so professional in how it's run, when you're going to take your lashes, but it's because you're learning the standard and you're not at the standard yet. That's kind of the difference. You don't get shit just to get shit. You get shit like when you need to do better at something, or we want you to learn how to do better at something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but it was really cool, man. It was, I felt really good from day one of being in that unit. Like,
That's good. Like you get that reception, you get that
yeah,
warm blanket. But you, so that's, I mean, it's a long pipeline. So you had said earlier it was get out of the army or
yep,
go into 160th, and you went to 160th, and like it's a no fail thing.
yeah,
Um, to whereas some guys, it's they're trying to push their career to that next level, where you were trying to maybe extend your career and
I
just
was
keep it
trying.
going.
Yes, that,
And
and I was trying to escape this mental health stuff. I was trying to get myself out of the hole. You know,
so you walk in that hangar and you get a warm reception. How did that make you feel in regard to your mental health once that happened? Did it feel like I'm back home, or
it did. It did. As far as it was weird, because I did feel like that's where I belonged, as far as the people, the mission, what we were doing. Like, I was actually a pilot to do what I signed up to be a pilot for, right? Like in the regular army, I barely did any real aviation assault missions. So that part felt really good. However, I still had the weight on myself, right? Like I still had the, all right, I haven't made it yet. Because even when you get to the 160th, even after you graduate the training, you're a basic mission qualified pilot, which is BMQ, and your goal is to make FMQ, so fully mission qualified pilot, and that's about a 2 years is like the max timeline, but it's usually like a year and a half time to get to that point. And once you get to that point, that's when you're really one of the boys. So
Mhm.
it's just this constant, man, like stair stepping to get there. So I still had that real big pressure that I put on myself, to get to that next level. So I was still trying to
you
prove
know,
myself.
a
Yeah.
lot of guys have said, it's never enough. You can
Yeah.
never, you're always, you get somewhere and you look around for a few minutes and then you see, oh, I want to go over there.
Yeah.
And then you work really hard to get over there. And then you get there and you go, it's really great to be here.
Yep.
I want to go a little further and a little further, and
Yep.
you go in a little further. So I see this just it's this stepping stone of everything in the military, and you're trying for that extra little bit. Is that how you felt? Like every step of the way, you
Absolutely.
get somewhere. I want to get something else. I want more. I want more.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it was also one of those things where, how, like, before you do something, you look at it and you're like, man, like, only, like, that seems impossible, right? It was also one of those things that the more I did and the more I got to the next level and stuff like that, like, it just felt normal. And it felt like I had to go to the next level to not feel normal. I don't know. Does that make
Yeah,
sense at all? Like, it's kind of a weird mentality,
it's
but
that it's a drive, right?
yeah,
Like you accomplish something, and you just want to keep accomplishing something.
right. Yeah.
And you succeed at a certain level, and you got to keep pushing it. And your warrant officer 5 said it in your board, right?
Exactly.
How long can you keep performing at a top level? You can't keep performing at a top
Right.
level forever.
Without
It'll
consequences, right?
without consequence,
Yeah.
because you know you went to 160th, which is another level above where you were, because you became a pilot and then you went to the as high as you can go as being a pilot, right?
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
because you're there. So you did, and you're giving something away. There's a price to pay for all
Yeah,
this things, and
exactly.
you may not see it at the time, but you're paying for it with, stress, how you feel,
Yep.
for the gratification now, and that accomplishment. So
Yeah.
what is the price that you paid to have all this success? Did you sacrifice your
Yeah.
mental health to get there? Because you kept your family,
Yeah.
and it sounds
Yeah.
like
I
you
kept
still
my
have.
fam. Yeah.
So you
Very
had to give up
fortunate.
something.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah. It
so
was myself. It was myself, man. And so this is when I'll just, so I did a couple years in the 160th. So 2020 deployed with them. And then 2021, I got knee surgery, which put me down for 9 months. So that period during that 9 months, that gave me the perspective to, well, that's not true. My wife got to the point where she made me go talk to somebody. Um, and I didn't want to, but I did. And I went to the flight surgeon first about these dizzy spells, right? Because to be honest, in my mind, like, since I wasn't suicidal anymore, like my mental health problems were good. And now these dizzy spells were something physical going on with me, right? That was my mentality. So I framed it that way when I talked to the flight surgeon. And I'm going to keep it brief because it's a really, this story goes on forever. But long story short, man, we do head to toe scans, everything, right? Make sure, rule everything out other than mental health. And then I was talking to a psychologist at this time, but it was framed as human performance, not like behavioral health, right? So in my mind, I was not free to disclose my history to her, because I was fearful of getting grounded, right? And I wanted to still fly after my knee surgery was repaired and everything. So I'm talking to the psych this whole time. She knows kind of what's going on with these dizzy spells and the other tests. So after everything else is ruled out, um, I got a sleep study done, got diagnosed with narcolepsy as a helicopter pilot in the
is
United
that
States
bad?
Army.
Is
That's
that
really bad. So
is that
narcolepsy
bad?
is where
I mean,
you like,
when you say it that way, it sounds bad.
yeah, narcolepsy is where you fall asleep randomly, right? Like you can't have somebody flying a multi-million-dollar aircraft with narcolepsy.
It
So
is something the government would do, though. That is,
I
be
know,
like,
dude. I
hey,
know. I'd be like,
we
oh,
need
he's
pilots.
fine.
Hey, send Nick
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. It'll be all right. So I go do that was with the civilian doc. Then I go to a Fort Gordon, Georgia, and do a sleep study with the Army docs. And I had so narcolepsy permanently grounded me. So it put me on a permanent down slip. So, and it's a med board, medical retirement, right? So my flight surgeon puts me in for the medical retirement. The Army denies it and says no, because it was done by a civilian doctor. You have to go do one with the Army doctors to validate it, because they have these specific like tests and systems that you have to do. So I do that. I go do it with the Army doc, and they say you have no diagnosable criteria for narcolepsy. So I'm like, what the hell, man? So I'm permanently grounded from flying, and I don't have the diagnosis that they grounded me for. So
That's
now I'm in this yeah,
classic
so I'm in this
military.
purgatory, man, where I can't do my job. My knee's better. I'm still having these dizzy spells, despite they put me on this narcolepsy medication, which didn't help. Um, and so, anyways, now I'm permanently grounded. So now the gloves are off. Now I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I'm gonna start talking about what actually happened to me, like leading up to these dizzy spells. Right? I'm not gonna hide that I was
Yeah, because
suicidal at one point anymore.
before
Yeah.
the one thing keeping you
Yep.
happy is, oh, I get to fly.
Yeah. It was.
I get to do all this
Yeah.
shit. And if they take it away from me, things could go. I could get worse. But now
Right.
flight's been taken away. All right,
Yep.
well, let's go talk to somebody. How did that go?
Yeah, yeah, it went really well, man. I talked to a psychiatrist. This was all through my psychologist, who was amazing. She was like one of the 160th psychs, right? So she got it. She was cool. And she was really good at working with us. But the psychiatrist puts me on some anti-anxiety meds. And I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll try anything at this point. Like, let's just get better and get healthy. And man, no shit, they start helping. Like After a couple of weeks, they start helping. Now, it took 4 or 5 different medications to find the right one that was like actually really effective, but it really started working, and it got me to the point where I was still having the dizzy spells, so they weren't completely gone, but they were very situational, and they became almost predictable, where I would know, okay, I'm going to like a football game in a crowded stadium, like I'm gonna have dizzy spells. I could actually anticipate it, right? So it was a lot different mentality. And essentially, long story short, actually it's not short, but the psychologist, after we realized his medications were working and were helping, she read me the symptoms for panic disorder, anxiety with panic disorder. And man, those, when she read it, I need to look up the list of symptoms just to remind myself for when I talk about it. But dude, just nailed every single one of them line by line. And like I was like, yeah, like I didn't want to accept it, right? But at the same time, it felt really good to finally have an answer and have a name for it. And that's really took that long, but that's really when my healing journey started, dude. Was once I got a name for it and once I accepted the fact that that's what it was, instead of trying to hide behind it, right? And
Mm.
just be in denial about it. So yeah, that's what got me medically retired, man, was panic disorder with anxiety. It was just basically like I wasn't going to get back up as a pilot because I was going to be on this medication, and just let it get so bad throughout the years that it started manifesting in physical symptoms. It's pretty wild.
And you got tapped for the MEB in 23 or in 22?
23. Yeah.
23 and then put out in
Yep.
23?
No. Yeah. So yep. So 20 May of 23 is when I got out.
Okay.
Um, the
It goes pretty
med
quick,
boards.
doesn't it?
Not for me.
Oh,
Not for me
really?
because because of the narcolepsy thing. Because I had to go do 2 more sleep studies. So
Oh,
basically,
those are always
from
fun, aren't they? Those are
yeah,
always
and it
fun.
takes like 2 months to get results. So basically, I was not flying from the end of from when I got knee surgery in 2021 all the way to when I got out. So almost 2 years. Yeah, a little over 2 years. I was not flying, and I was still actively like involved. Like I was still doing planning, and I was the safety officer for the unit. So I was still going on trips and stuff, but yeah, man, I wasn't flying. So
Yeah.
it was weird. It was really weird.
Once that process got going, where you kind of like resigned to the fact where you like, I'm glad it's time to
Oh
go.
yeah,
You're
dude, it was the biggest sense of relief. Like I mean, it was still scary just because all the unknowns of civilian life, right? In the civilian world. And the army is what I knew. But the relief of one, now I'm out of the woods and I'm not going to kill myself, right? Like I know
yeah.
that sounds dramatic, but that's really not dramatic in my situation. And then two, like I don't really have to hide what I'm going through anymore, right? Like I can actually deal with it and actually like be the person I want to be in the future. So it was bittersweet, I guess,
Yeah.
is a good way to say it. Like it was
Once
a
you
breath of fresh
realize
air.
once you realize that this is my life and I'm the only one
Yeah.
who has to live it,
Yes.
and I don't
Yes.
give a fuck what anybody else thinks. It's not their
Amen.
life, it's mine. Once you realize that, then you start feeling a little bit better. And
Amen, dude.
alcohol
Yeah.
makes you feel that less for a longer time, and being in the army really does make you numb to a lot of your human feelings. It does make
Yeah.
you feel a
That
lot less than human sometimes.
sometimes, yeah. That and you also it's a weird thing where you feel trapped, right? Some
You are
people feel
trapped. You signed a
trapped.
piece of paper.
Yeah.
You can't
Right.
leave.
And yeah, and you also a lot of people get caught in this trap where they get to 10 years in the military or 11 years and they're like,
Oh, you're the
man,
hump.
I might as well just do 20, right?
Yeah.
But like if it's not for you, man, like there's so much out here, as you know, as I'm learning right now, that the civilian world, man, the opportunities are endless, especially if you have that mindset, that growth
They
mindset.
are.
Like
They are.
you
But a lot of people join. Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
people join the army to get out of a bad situation in civilian
Yes.
life. A
Good
lot of
point.
people. A
Good
lot of
point.
people. And then they go off into this fantasy world that's totally different
Yeah.
and they fit in really well. and now it's time to get out, and they have to go back to this other world that they didn't
Mm-hmm.
fit in. They might not fit in, and they have to learn it all
Yeah.
over again because it's like Shawshank Redemption. They've been in prison for 20 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah.
so
I do discount that too much because
everybody's got
it's not
different
every day, you know? Yeah.
situations and everything's
Right.
different about how they get out. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. When people tell their story, just try. Yeah, I try not to judge anybody's story or anything like that, and
Yeah.
just kind of be supportive. Unless I'm listening to them and I'm like, this person's full of shit.
Yeah.
Then I
For
kind
real.
of just go, oh, just nod, and I don't need to talk to
Yeah.
that person anymore. But
Right. Right.
so finally the day comes, we go on terminal leave. Did you have a
Yeah.
plan of what
I
you're gonna
did,
do?
man. Yep.
Good.
So man, I was the whole time I was in the army, I was always this closet like finance nerd. Like
Were
when
you one of
I
the guys that
first
was day trading at some of the schools that we would go
no, so
to?
I was never day trading.
Mm,
I mean, don't get me wrong, I have tried it, but that didn't work out. I was more of the like Dave Ramsey mentality of let's build wealth over time, right? And somehow I just had that interest and love for it. Like I just everything I consumed was financial podcasts, personal finance stuff. So it was a very easy decision of what I was going to do after the military. And the med board process was pretty fortuitous for me because I was able to get my certified financial planner stuff done before I even got out of the army. So, which helped me get a job right when I got out of the army at a firm that I wanted to work for as a financial advisor. So it really like gave me the space and time to prepare to get out, right? Because most people don't have a year and a half to look at their future, and say this is what I want to do. So yeah, that was really nice to have that
so
space.
how about the other side? Because we're looking at your wife being a major now, right?
Yeah.
She's
Oh yeah.
still
Good
in.
point. So
She's
no,
still in.
that team, no. So she got out in 2018.
Okay,
So
so
she got out.
I was
Yeah. So
keeping her in through this
sorry,
whole
that's my
time.
bad, dude. That's my bad. I totally skipped that. So she got out. Yeah, 2018. She's been a mom for the most part, which has been amazing. And now she works. She's a personal trainer, so she does personal training like 25 hours a week. So nothing
Nice.
crazy. So yeah. But that was yeah, dude. It was a long road to get here, but we yeah, now we're in Charlotte, North Carolina, and life's good, dude. Yeah.
Good. I
Yeah.
mean, you obviously, if you said you were a closeted finance guy, and
Yeah.
now you're an open finance guy.
Yeah.
How do you like that? Are you the boss, or do you work for a company?
I am. I am. So it's me and a business partner. We started a firm a year ago called Cadence Wealth Partners. And yeah, man, I mean, it's on me to succeed or fail, right? So, but I love it. It gives me energy, right? Like I get to have conversations like this with people on a different side, right? In the finance side. And I love that I've really learned to like bring in the behavioral side of finance and the mental side of finance, right? Because it's not all spreadsheets and numbers. It's really not. Like it's doing things, having the mindset of why you're doing things. That's what really like propels that. So yeah, it's been great though. I am niching and working with veterans specifically, which has also been nice because then I can speak their language, right, and connect with them on a deeper
Hmm.
level than the guy down the road in the corner financial advisor's office can do. So that's been super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a different. I don't know. It's people say it's we're not veterans aren't victims, but society kind of treats them as they're like these
They
broken
do.
individuals. But they're some of the most capable people in the world. But
Oh yeah.
they're some of the biggest assholes
I know.
in the
I know,
fucking
dude.
world
That
too.
I know, man. It's so true. It's so
Like
true. It's such a
I,
polarizing.
it
Yeah.
is, and then you get that in with them. Oh, I'm a veteran too. Or I was in this unit. Oh, I went in this deployment and things like that too. So I get what you're saying there. It is
Yeah.
different.
No, yeah, it's nice. And then you can, just and even the veteran like benefits, right? Like people, there's such an awesome opportunity if you have VA disability, to maximize that. But what
Yeah.
do most people do? They say, "Oh, I got an extra 3-4 grand a month. So let's go buy a, you know what I mean? Let's go rack
Yeah.
up payments to that amount instead of, what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
Oh no,
So
I
a
gotcha.
lot of the behavioral stuff is really where you can like go from having a normal life to a wealthy life.
Speaking of normal life, so how do you deal with, because special forces,
Yeah.
160th, being a pilot was fucking stressful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're at like a 6 or 7 all the time,
Yeah.
and
For real.
now you're not, right? So
Yeah.
are you happy that that's stress levels gone, especially with what you went through in your head?
I am, because the cool thing about now is all the stress that I have, maybe not all, but the majority of it is self-induced, right? And when I can operate like, let's just call it a 5, because and I was used to operating a 7, but a 5 is still above, the average person, and I can still excel, but minimize my stress level, right? So I can still work really hard and put a lot of my energy into it and focus on it, but it's not dangerous, right? And I don't have the pressure of like, shit, I got to land in the dust, in 10 minutes and I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to see anything. Like, so I enjoy it. I enjoy the little bit of stress, but it's not life or death stress. Does that make sense? It's more of
Oh, I
it's
mean,
manageable stress. Like,
you can only take people can only take so much suffering, right? They have a
right.
threshold that they have, and once you're like, I watched these documentaries with detectives are on there, and they'll say
Yeah.
this was the case that I retired, and it's like ridiculous. There was all kinds of victims and trauma and all this shit,
Yeah.
whereas maybe there would have been 50 normal cases, and they would have continued on for years, but they just filled
Right.
that cup of how much shit they can take. And
Yeah.
everybody has their breaking points. Some people do 30 years in the army. Some people do one stint and they get out and it's not for me. Or
Yep.
they can just take that level of abuse. But do
Yeah.
you do you feel like you accomplished everything you wanted to? Did you get everything out of the military that you could have?
Yeah. I really do, man. If I had not gotten that deployment with the 160th, I don't know if I would say the same thing. But that deployment kind of solidified everything, right? Like, I got my special operations deployment in where we actually did shit. You know,
Yeah.
if without that, I think I would have still looked back and been like, damn, I wish I would have gotten it in. But since I got that, yeah, I felt like I was ready. I was ready to go be civilian Nick and talk about how cool I used to be.
Where was that? What was the moment on your deployment with 160th where you said, "I can't believe I get to do this"? What's your
Yeah,
story from that
dude.
one?
So I can't really give the location details,
All
but
right. How about
essentially,
was there a
I will
moment
give you
where you
the,
got?
well, I can give you the synopsis of the
Yeah,
mission without the location, right? And I think yeah, that's
that's
definitely fine.
plenty.
So basically, we're doing a border crossing. Um, we're getting we're getting all sorts of jamming signals, so our avionics aren't working. Um, and so we had to fly really low. We're 100 feet off the ground just to try to minimize that. And yeah,
For
we're
everybody
putting
listening at home, 100 feet off the ground is this far.
is especially when
Is
you're going 120 knots. Yeah, it's sporty and over the desert at night, right? So your
yeah,
depth perception and your yeah, it's
you are
yeah, you're pretty
flying.
close.
You are
Yeah, and
flying.
we're flight of 4 or 5. I think it's 4 at that point. Yeah, dude, and we actually like dropped the dudes off at the X, and it was just, man, it was so fulfilling, like seeing everything come together perfectly. After you're in a planning cell for 10 plus hours, going through every single detail, and then when you see it executed just to perfection. And I was chalk 4, so it was 5. So I was chalk 4 out of 5. So you get to see the first 3 aircraft, just land perfectly in sync on the LZ, and then the guys get out and go do their thing, lasers everywhere, dude. That was the moment where I was like, hell yeah, like this is
Yeah,
it.
and
Like,
you can. There's no drug, no amount of alcohol,
no,
nothing in the world that you can create that racks up to that moment, right? And I equate
exactly.
it to like
Yeah.
being in the stack when
Yeah.
you're the Charlie
Ex-
and you got the door
yep.
charge on and the
Yep.
snipers go on 2 and the demo goes on 1 and then you go through the door.
Yes.
You can't you can't duplicate it. You can't duplicate
You
that moment
can't.
where you fucking hit everything and it just is
Yeah, dude.
perfect. And
Yeah. Where you're like, part of you is like terrified, but then the other part is like, hell yeah. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
they make
it's
movies
awesome.
about this exact shit right
Right.
here.
Yeah,
Those are the
exactly.
guys that can't talk about the shit. It's just like, fuck
Exactly.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome,
dude.
man.
Yeah,
Hey,
so that was cool. That was
at least you got
validating.
to have that moment and you can look back and
Yeah,
now and then it leads to, you minimize all the other hard shit, which was still ridiculously hard shit that you did in
I
your
know.
career because
I
you
know.
did stuff that's incomprehensible to most people and you just did it.
Yeah.
You just did it just
Like
because
like
you wanted to,
torture.
you
Yeah,
know?
just because I wanted to. Yeah.
Huh.
I was running from something, but no.
Most people don't
Yeah,
do what
man.
they want to do because they just don't want to take the leap. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
We just did
Yeah.
ridiculous shit just because we want to.
I know.
You know?
I know.
Guess
We're a
that's your
different
lesson.
breed, that's for
If you want to
sure.
do something, just fucking do it.
Dude,
Just go
it's
do it.
true though, man. So even on that, that's a perfect like segue into what I'm doing now because I'm literally launching a YouTube channel right now on money stuff, right? Like financial education slash. I'm also going to sprinkle in some mental health stuff because I'm writing the book. But that's the perfect thing example of just go do it. Same with the podcast that you're doing. Like I had all this like limiting beliefs and head trash of like I'm a Green Beret. We don't really do this stuff and put ourselves out there, right?
Yeah.
So how is this going to be perceived by the community? But dude, at the same time, like as long as
Okay.
I'm not glorifying what I'm doing, right? Or like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
doing what, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like
I got you.
as long as I approach it from a educational, right? I'm literally trying to help people and a humble mindset of, yes, I did cool shit, but this is what I'm doing now.
People
You
see
know,
through
I'm
your
doing it.
shit if you're not. They'll see
They
through
do.
you and they won't.
Yeah,
What's the name of your
totally.
channel going to be?
Thrive with Nick.
Thrive
And
with Nick. All right. Perfect.
yeah, I did it that way because I don't want it just to be financial stuff. I really want it to be like sprinkle in the mental health stuff and kind of, what I learned because I'm willing to just talk about it now. I don't really care what people think, which took me a while to get there, but
Yeah.
people
You
still need to hear
learn
it.
the hard way.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So hopefully I can minimize, future mistakes from other people by spreading awareness that way.
So now you're a veteran.
Now I'm a veteran. Yeah, I got
Uh,
the license plate and everything, dude.
ooh. Well. Okay. Save some for the rest of
It's
us, there, guy. Come on.
yeah, I better
Um.
watch out.
No, it's good. So what did you get? What's that? 14 years?
It hit
Thir-
13. It ended up being 13. Yeah. It was like 13 in like 8 months or something like that.
yeah. How's it being a veteran
Yeah.
now? You.
It's been good. The biggest adjustment was just that people have no idea what the hell anything in the military is, right? So like there's no point of telling them what I did.
Oh,
That's been the most eye-opening thing. I'm just like, yeah, I was in the army, whatever. Like, and that's
I've
it. That's about all I say, unless they ask more.
I've found that people are like, oh, I don't tell people I was a Green Beret. I was like, I do. I just say I was a
Yeah.
Green Beret, and then I don't say anything else.
Yeah.
And they just
Yeah.
make shit up. Like
They just
they
make their
think
own.
way more badass stuff than I've ever done in my whole life. Like
Dude, that's funny.
I didn't tell them I was on staff, like sending
Yeah, for
taskings
real.
emails, and they're like, oh, well,
I
that sounds pretty
S3
badass.
the
It's like,
shit out
oh,
of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds proof. God, it is badass. I sent 14 emails a day, and I ate and worked out, so it's great.
They were damn
Um,
good emails though.
do you miss being in the uniform?
I miss the people,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh, that's the
I
best
really
part,
do.
right?
Yeah, I miss the people and I miss being around the people on a day-to-day basis, I think that's yeah. I don't really miss flying. I don't really miss the army in general, I think it's just
No.
the brotherhood aspect I definitely miss. And that's tough to find in the civilian world, Like I'm getting there, but it's not the same. In the army you always have default friends. So that's one thing that's
Well,
different for sure.
you're in the acute stages here. You've only been out for
Yeah, that's true.
not very long.
You're in not even 2 years.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
The longer you can hold it together, the better chances it'll stay together when you're getting out.
Love it.
You kind of just,
Yeah.
I did not do well getting out.
Did
I
you?
took it poorly. Poorly to say
Yeah.
is the best way to take it. But
Well,
uh,
your process was quick too, you said, right?
I was not. Yeah, I did not want to get
Do
out.
that?
I still do not want to have gotten out.
Yeah,
Uh, I just
that
it is
makes
the
it a
way it
lot
is.
harder. Yeah,
Yeah, so 8 years and then done. But I
yeah,
I accomplished everything I wanted to do, and then I got hurt and it was over, and
yeah. Well,
that
that's
was
good.
it. But
I
when you
mean,
say
not it's not good they got hurt, but
when you say high achiever, honor graduate of basic, honor graduate of AIT, leadership award in the Q course,
yeah,
physical stud, just I mean, yeah, I
heck yeah,
could do anything I wanted to. I
yeah,
could have possibly gone on to do other things, and then it's over. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's the way it goes, right? So,
Right. I mean, you still achieved something, that 1%, not even of the population does. So, like, it's pretty incredible, right? It's
yeah.
cool. It's really
So
cool.
I use my talents for other things now. I
Exactly.
got 5 questions here for you if you got a
Let's
second.
do it. Yeah, let's
All
do it.
right. With your newly minted veteran status, what is your response to thank you for your service?
Oh, man, I really don't have a default one. I typically say thank you for saying that.
Okay.
If I can't think of anything like else, that's what I say. Thank you for
Okay.
saying. Like, it is annoying. I'm not gonna lie, but I respect the people that do it because
It's
I
not
respect that they're
it's not going
still
to
doing something.
stop happening. Your people are still
I
going to
know.
keep saying it. So you got to have
Oh, I
something
know.
queued up. You got to have
What do
one
you
ready.
say? What do you?
I
Am I
just
allowed
say
to ask you
it
questions?
would. Oh, absolutely. I say it
Okay,
was an honor. Thank you.
that's good. I like that. Yeah, that's
Simple and to
respectable.
the point. It was an honor because it really was.
It was
It was
absolutely.
an
I'm
honor
proud
to
of
do
it.
that, to do everything for
Oh yeah,
to serve my country and do the great things and come out on the other
yeah.
end. So it really was. So it's real
I
simple
agree.
and to the point.
I like that.
What is the one characteristic that sets operators or special operations guys apart from conventional forces?
Oh man, one characteristic. Let's see. Man, that's a really good question. If I had to pick one, it would probably be the ability to self motivate. I think
Okay.
like do something on your own without being asked and do it well. I know that's like yeah. There's got to be a better word for that, but I think that is the
Self starter.
biggest differentiator. There you go, self starter.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a big part of it because all of these things, like you get into the army and then you can rise to the top being told what to do the whole time.
right, right,
But you can't do that unless in these units, unless you make yourself do it
exactly. Yeah,
and pushing yourself. Like nobody forced me to go to selection. I went to the brief. I signed a piece of paper. I went to selection
yep,
and passed. And then I chose to go to the Q course and I chose to go to airborne school and all this other stuff. So that is, yeah,
exactly.
you got a completely different mindset of people in special operations. They chose to be there. They want to be
Yeah,
there, and for better or for worse, or how it
right.
works out for them. But it's just a different mindset. So I like that. I like that self
Yeah.
motivation. What is the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive one more time?
Hmm. Man, you're crushing these questions. Let's see. I really go back to that 160th moment that we talked about.
Yeah.
Like that really was the like probably pinnacle of everything that I did prior to that. You know what I mean? Like everything that I did in my career led up to that moment. So yeah,
All the training, all the hours. It's
yeah,
like when you
exactly.
hit something. Like for me, it's in the gym, right? All of those workouts
Yeah,
and all those meals. So it's in the army, it's all those fucking training sessions and all the planning
yeah,
and all those classes and all the work with your teammates and all the studying and memorizing and working with other people and becoming friends. You know, you I imagine it's the same when you're on a team.
yeah,
execute missions better when everybody likes each other, but your pilots
Yep.
too, you fly better. Everything just
Absolutely.
adds up. So that's what it was. Just that one moment on the LZ, all that,
Yep.
that's where it was, the pinnacle.
Yeah, dude. Yep. And just taking off away from it and, just fist bumping my, my buddy, as cheesy as that is. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt good, man. Yeah, that was it. It was like,
I love it.
this is the real deal.
What's the best piece of advice that you received during your service?
Ooh. I can tell you the best piece of advice that I didn't receive.
I like that too, because
No.
mine's an inverse
Okay.
answer as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Because the best piece of advice I received was bad advice, and I just did the
yeah,
opposite of it. So what do you got?
yeah. It's don't hide your shit, man. Don't be scared to be yourself.
Yeah.
I did that way too long and felt like I had to pretend to be this person, right? And just hid behind what I was really going through. So if I would have changed all of that, like, I mean, not saying I'm not happy where I'm at now, but I would have not had to suffer for that long. So yeah, I think that's the biggest one. Just don't be scared to be yourself.
It is, yeah. It's interesting because experience, unfortunately, takes a long time
Yeah,
to garner.
it does. It
So,
does.
you get to your 30s and late 30s now, and we keep growing up and keep accumulating more. But
Yeah.
it's through that transition phase in your 20s and going through the military. And I don't. The reason we're able to do all that stuff is because we'll just do it when we're younger. But now you
Right.
get to your older, like, I'm not doing that shit.
I know, dude. I know.
I'm not going to
I don't have
pretend.
to. Like,
I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I'm not going to go do this, do that. I want to
Yep.
go to bed. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Then, um, crashing a helicopter and leaving my kids without a dad. Slash,
How real of a possibility is that? Like at all times, like
I
how
almost
far
rolled
over
over
the
a
horizon?
helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost rolled one over. One time, like, very scary, very close to. I was landing in a dust cloud and hit the ground and bounced the helicopter, and literally, like, another freaking degree of pitch, the wheel would have caught and it would have rolled over, and who knows. So it's real. It's real. It could happen anytime you're doing anything, remotely, that requires precision, right? But so that was always in the back of my mind, was that during the time. Now my biggest fear, man, that's a good one. Yeah, I really think it's not being successful. I'm scared of that because I know I have the potential to be, and I'm scared that if I'm not successful, that's a reflection of me failing. So yeah, that's probably my biggest fear right now. And that's not just in business, that's more like as a dad too, like just in life. Like I want to, yeah.
I get that. But none of us want to fail. We're all
Right.
But you got to think in your mind. You're like, I've never like purposefully tanked it. I've always tried to do my best. So if you just continue on that and don't let yourself get stressed out about failing, get stressed out about succeeding.
Like, yeah, that's a good mindset.
You're the sum of everybody else's influence in your life. All these little pieces from all these people and thousands of people that have influenced you, all this knowledge put together into this Nick O'Kelly, CFP, right? With all this experience, bad motherfucker. So,
that's right, baby.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's good to be afraid of some things, but yeah,
that's
just keep
that's
it
a good
in the back
mindset
of your mind
shift,
and overcome it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, that 3.5, that flew by pretty quick, huh?
I know, isn't that wild? Yeah, it was awesome.
That's the way it goes.
I love it.
What's the name of your financial planning business?
Yeah, so I'll make it easy for everybody if anybody's interested. It's finance4vets.com. Finance4, number 4, vets.com.
Number 4. Yeah.
That's my, yeah, you'll find my website there. And then I'm writing a book about all this crap, all this mental health crap, man. I'm trying to get people to look at me as a dude that did hard shit and is still okay with telling people that I struggle with mental health stuff. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
I really think there's value in that for the world. I do. So
Do it for you. Do it for you.
I mean, it is helping me, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just talking about it and being open about it is therapy for me. Like it's been so beneficial.
I say,
So
as somebody that did all these things that people, I'm from a section of the population that people think is invincible. And if I
right.
can stand up in front of people and tell them I'm not, I'm just a regular person with regular problems that did
Yep.
extraordinary things, and you can deal with your problems the same as I'm dealing with mine right now. And you
Yep.
need to do that or you're going to push yourself into destruction. So,
Exactly. Amen.
well, I'm going to click this off here and then we'll go back into the waiting room. You got anything for me?
No, man, this was awesome. And thanks for having me on. And yeah, it's cool. Really
I
cool.
appreciate you. Nick O'Kelly, everybody. Bye, everybody.